Hey, how are you? Good evening and welcome to
Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's work session. Today is Monday, June the 13th, 2022. It is now 5 p.m. The work session of the City Council of the City of Trinidad will now come to order. We have 5 items tonight for discussion. One is the Housing Incentive Program, next steps discussion. Item 2 is the Placer software demonstration. Item 3 is the marijuana business discussion. Item 4 is the patio discussion, empowered Nancy Lackey. Item 5 is commercial vehicle parking restrictions discussion. Let's go ahead and start off with item number 1, which is the Housing Incentive Program. Next step discussion, and Mr. Valentine.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. If you recall, a few meetings back, we were presented with a workforce housing development strategies and incentives by Michael Yerman from SCED. And I don't know if Michael's with us yet, or he was planning on attending. Are you there? Doesn't appear that he's with us, but the crux of the matter for tonight is to get council's consideration of next steps. If you recall, the vacant housing incentive package that was presented was $1 million. The new workforce housing incentive package required $1 million, and then the tap fee waiver was $500,000. I know that's a pretty big ask, and we had talked with Michael and internally the team, and we're wondering if council would consider $500,000 for each, just to see if that would generate some interest in developers to start moving downtown properties, refurbishing upstairs into apartments. You know, it would not only help the businesses, but it would kind of rejuvenate downtown if we had more people living downstairs, upstairs in those downtown apartments. So with that said, I just want to get council's, will moving forward if you're willing to do that. I know the first question is, where's the money coming from? So we have $2.6 million in the rainy day fund. We have $204,000 in an ED fund that when Los Angeles County Economic Development Corp disbanded, the city got that money. Plus we got some rental from AmeriGas that was out there. We owned the lot and they rented for a good period of time, so there's 204 there. In the incentive package that we've been putting away for the tap fee waivers, we have 250,000 there. We also have the opportunity to, council had set a resolution to direct funds to several projects. So there's that opportunity to redirect them to this program. So what staff will be looking for is direction moving forward. Do we come forth with the resolution? Is this something that City Council wants to see if we can't jumpstart some of this? I know in the past we've had these programs and facades, and nobody's really taken advantage like we thought they would. But this is suggested to be $25,000 per unit, per door. That if a developer chose to, and it's up to $200,000 limit per developer, per unit. So if they have 8 units, that's the max they can do, $25,000 per door. And the idea is that we would have that money for them, and they would have to do the work, and at the end, we would reimburse. Those were tied to, I included in the presentation Mr. Yerman's proposal, and they were tied to 100% AMI, I believe. I don't know if Michael's joined us yet.
I don't see him up there yet.
That's fine. So, the new workforce housing was 80 to 120. With these incentives, we'd have to set up policies. There'd probably be deed restrictions of some kind, or policies that the developer, the owner would have to hold that for a certain amount of time, so that they don't just use our money and then flip them, But with that, I look for some direction for council to move forward with staff.
Okay, let's go and get some questions made, Mr. DeBona.
Mike, is that 25,000 per unit, is that including the utility tap fee, excluding or including?
It could
Could
include
include that?
the tap fee as well. Right.
So that would,
So it could be 25,000 and the tap fee.
okay, I think the 500,000 to kickstart, like you said, I think it's a good idea.
And there's two policies. There's for vacant buildings. We're hoping downtown, that's where Mr. Yerman sees the best bang for our buck, is get downtown revitalized, get people moved in down there. But it could be for units anywhere in the city. The new workforce housing, of course, would be for new units somewhere. But, yeah.
So infrastructurally, a lot of it's pretty sound downtown, but some have to be
Yeah.
updated, sure.
Squiggle.
Are there any units that the city's pinpointed that are very minimal as far as what it would cost to bring them into the shape that they'd be inhabitable?
I have to say no. I know that Michael visited downtown in some of them. As far as when we set the policy up, part of that is going to have to be someone to go in there and kind of analyze the property and verify that it is, it's, the 25,000 isn't going to put them, but it's going to help them to kind of maybe jumpstart.
I think we need time constraints on this too, because if we give the money, well, of course, it's gonna be at the end of the project.
This is kind of tied to hoping that all the incentive packages that the state and feds are putting out there, it's a 3-year window. This is kind of tied to that. We're not going to hold this money forever. We're, you're going to give us 2 years, 3 years.
Okay. So we're talking, it's funds available, recap that for me, will you, Mike?
So we do have rainy day
2.6.
funds at 2.6. We have money in ED, economic development, 204, and then our incentive reserves that we've been putting away for the last year is up to 250.
So we
And
have
then
right over 3 million.
Right. And then there's a possibility that we can redirect some of the projects that, we directed funds to, and they're not ready to go. If council's willing to direct them toward this.
Have no further questions, thanks.
First of all, is anybody really interested in this program that we've talked to downtown? Anybody even talked to you about it?
Well, we've had the meeting here, and then if staff works up toward a policy, then we can go talk to people. Otherwise, we can go ask them, would you be interested, I suppose?
I don't think it's a good idea to tie up 500,000. I think we should put less and do an experiment. See if anybody's really interested in it. We have a lot of other issues in the city right now. And that's a lot of, I can understand getting a jump, but if we don't have anybody really interested in, 25,000 is a pretty good jump start, but to redo some of those buildings, it's gonna cost people hundred thousands and more.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if any of those people really would be willing to put that kind of money out. I mean, I can understand we can get some kind of a program to start, see if it works, and then we can add to it.
Right.
But, I mean, that's my feeling. I think that's, pretty tough to play with city money. I don't know if anybody wanted to throw it around, but with the issue that we got, with the city and all that, and I just kind of think that might be a better way to do it, is kind of set up a program where if we get people interested in it, then we can always add money to it because we have it there. And if we get people really interested in it, because like I say, you've been to the grocery store and the lumber yard lately? I mean, it's just outrageous, and things just keep going up. And I don't know if anybody's willing to put, or has that kind of money to put into it. So that's my feeling.
Sure. Ms. Ogletree, you're virtual tonight. Any comments?
Yes, I do. I think this is a really helpful information that has been provided to us from people who have studied our community historically, where we are, where we're going. And I think one of the things that you hear consistently when we try to bring businesses to this area to increase the income levels of people in Trinidad, that there's nowhere for people to live, that the housing is just not adequate. And I think if we don't move at this time, it would be a mistake. And, with rising interest rates, I think the sooner that we move, the better. That we should communicate a willingness to partner with private developers who are interested in building here and let them know we want them to come. Yes, there are lots of different things we can do in this community, but housing is a really critical need. It's something we hear over and over again. So I think we should dedicate as much as we can afford toward this.
So we talked about developers. Maybe we should put together a program to have some developers come and meet with the existing developers that we have in town as part of the incentive program to see what the possibilities are for as workforce housing. Mike, what's the number that we're looking at as far as housing? What are we trying? How many do we need in town?
I think through our housing needs assessment, we were 128 sticks in my, 121 for sale units.
How many of those units would be in town or downtown or do you have that?
I don't have the number for downtown. I know that a lot of these buildings downtown had that third floor
Right.
that were housed at one time and over the years.
Maybe we should be looking at a development fair for surrounding developers to work with the existing developers.
If you look at the numbers in here, the estimated future housing needs, it says 146 rental subsidies, 16 rental units, 3 rental units. Of course, that's in the categories of that 146 for somebody making $17,650. The 16 rental units are for those making $29,400. The 3 rental units are $47,050. And then in the upper range of 70,000, there's 293 rental subsidies and 79 rental units. So those are the numbers that we receive For sale units, of course, it looks like 31 units in that category of the $47,000 range. That's what was shown here.
So,
So the numbers are there.
the numbers are there. So it's almost like one of those, if we build it, they'll come kind of situations, right? Since
Yeah.
I think it's gamble, but I think we should take that gamble, right? I don't know. That's my thoughts on this.
Thank you, Mayor. The downtown and vacant housing program, I mean, by its title, it's not necessarily limited to downtown then. It would be vacant housing throughout Trinidad.
That's correct.
Um,
But downtown, we get most bang for our buck, I
Right,
guess,
right.
but, you know,
Sure.
we're not turning anybody down, even one unit. If we can help get one unit, that's,
So hypothetically, if we had that program in place and someone wanted to redo a second and third floor downtown and they come out with 8 units, that's 200,000, and that would be the limit that we talked about for that person.
correct.
At the same time, so we could do that twice downtown hypothetically, leaving 100,000, and then potentially, I'm just saying hypothetically, there would be 4 residents in town that would say a rundown, blighted, vacant building. Those could all happen simultaneously. Is that the case?
That is the possibility, yes.
Um,
We'd have to, again, go through the viability. Is Michael on?
No.
Yeah, so sorry, I was muted and but I've been listening.
Good.
And I apologize. My internet for some reason is flaking out on me here today. But I'm here. Sorry about that, Mike. I couldn't unmute myself there for a minute.
Well, now you're unmuted, go ahead.
Well, so there was a question that was brought up about how many units. And so before Sky left, there was a survey done. There were 65 vacant units, 60 to 65 existing vacant units in the downtown. And so that $1 million number would service 40. And I think, in hearing some of the council's discussions, I think, one thing that Mike and I kicked around was we could start with a $500,000 in the incentive for the downtown and see how much interest there really is. Wally did bring up in a meeting just a little bit ago that where he's hearing the most from the development community right now is in the downtown and not so much in the new unit construction. And again, the new unit construction would also be eligible if it was deed restricted for the tap fee. But I do think that the biggest bang for your buck right now, the other piece, I did hear a comment that 25,000 isn't that much. One thing I will add is that the way we will write this resolution will ensure there is no edit grant that was very popular with downtown property owners this last year. We will write the resolution in such a way to allow a property owner to take that city fund and also provide it towards their required match. That OEDIT grant was up to $200,000 for a property, but they required a 50% match. So if you can think about if you had 2 units and you got 50,000 and you're able to use those funds as well as coming up with some of your own money towards that match, that's really how that incentive was written, was to really try to incentivize those folks to either look at the OEDIT or again if that money goes into as enough to get that moving forward. But yeah, I think the other last thing I'll just add, and I'll be quiet, is that I think that the council is right. It does require a little bit of extra legwork for the staff. So we talked about kind of setting up a process when I'm there on Wednesday, if this is something that the council is interested in proceeding with, of how to make sure that there's an initial site visit done, and then also to ensure that the proper permits, et cetera, are pulled with a budget to make sure that it is truly an attainable project. And this isn't something that we're holding a bunch of cash on without actually doing the homework. I hope that helps.
If you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
I had a question. Who would be the authority that would oversee each each project? I mean, who's the final authority?
Well, through the building inspector, we would do that, but we'd have to staff up for that. Somebody would have to go in, like Michael just mentioned, and kind of analyze the project, see if it's feasible. It would add staff time.
Okay, the other thing, I mean, I don't know how relevant this is to the discussion or if it's easy to obtain. Of available downtown housing, like the art space lofts, to include the ones on Elm, and maybe even potentially the Toll Tech, do we know how many, what the occupancy of those is right now?
The refurbished ones, I do not, and I don't know, Wally. Is Art Space, both buildings, are they full now?
I'm not sure where they're at right now. As of a few months ago, there were 3 vacant units.
Okay, so I mean, it's pretty well occupied.
It's pretty well
And then-
occupied at the lower AMI, so.
Yeah, and then sort of juxtaposition there, the Toll Tech, I know, some of those have converted to Airbnbs, which I know there'd be provision here to prevent that, but to me, it's an indication.
Yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes.
It's an indication that if it was there, it would be used. Sort of the last question I had to Councilman Shu's point, if that money was set aside and absolutely nobody came forward, I mean, is it just administratively unwound from that? Is that
Correct, but if somebody, yes, we would have, council would have to direct that fund to be there. If somebody comes forward and they're doing 200,000, at the end of their project, when we say it's all good, they're gonna have, they've already spent that 200,000 in their capital stack, they're gonna get that back.
just one
Yeah.
one final question, if I may. If say we hypothetically decided to go forward with the downtown rehab, is there anything we would encumber ourselves with that we couldn't undo ourselves from? I mean, is it going to cause there to be hires, anything like that? Are we going to automatically increase headcount just due to putting that in place, employee headcount?
Not at the start. It may. I mean, if it takes off, it could be.
But that would be an
we're
indication
gonna
the program
need
is
a-
working well.
Right. Exactly.
I have no further questions.
So what we're doing is we're encumbering 1.5 million out of the little over $3 million that we have available is what we would be doing.
That's the suggested at the time, and we've kind of, as staff, kicked it around as well, was 1,500,000. We're thinking we pare that back and kind of, so it is 1.5, 500. Our council could elect to just do vacant and not new workforce.
I think we need to do something, and I don't have an issue with the 1.5. We have to have a starting point, because if we drop it any lower than that, then we'd have to come back to council to encumber more money, and that would just mean that it would take more time for if somebody else came forward. I did talk to somebody, I think it was around Christmas time or shortly after, that did own some building downtown, that they were talking about doing something. It's on Commercial Street. And so they're interested in, now whether they're still interested in moving forward with that, I don't know. But they were interested in doing that. Now, I don't know if this would have any, on Wednesday, there's a housing forum, I guess, for some people here at City Hall. And I don't know if there's anything that may come out of that that would help this situation. This is something that we'll talk about. There's also another meeting coming up on the 28th that they want to talk pretty strongly about housing, and we'll see if anything, because that's from the federal end. So, but I think we just need to. I think we need to start somewhere, and I think if we go anything less than that 50 or that 500, it just. I just don't think that it would be. It wouldn't really do any justice. Yes, sir.
At at the meetings that are coming up, is there going to be some education about the grants that are available? I think that's something also we have to keep in mind, is that these grants are once in an age that are available to jumpstart development like this. And it's not just our money that's going to be leveraged. It's that kind of money that would be leveraged towards helping our downtown area become populated and revitalized. And that's why I think this is important.
No, I agree.
So, if I could jump on that real quick, what's really critical about the House Bill 1271 is that they require qualified strategies to be in place prior to the grant funds. And so the reuse of commercial properties and the tap fee deferrals are both qualified strategies that would make Trinidad eligible for those planning grant funds. So these, when I drafted those up, I was very, very cognizant of ensuring, because it was from the council's direction, to ensure that any of these types of incentives would put you in a better spot moving forward over the next 3 years when that tranche of housing money is coming through the state. So I think that point is really well founded. But the House Bill 1271 actually requires the qualified strategies, and you did get a planning grant to adopt qualified strategies. But all three of these strategies fit within the 16 listed dual qualified strategies, and in fact, a couple of them check more than one box. That you guys would be pretty far down the road on this.
The other thing that I think it would do, having that additional 1.5 on the table that we're leaving, like I said, we have these other 2 meetings upcoming, and if there's any grants out there that we would need to match for some reason or another, that we would be able to utilize that money if necessary for a grant match. So I don't know if that's the case, but anytime we talk about any federal money, there's usually some sort of a match that's required. So I think we would have that other 1.5 available to match in case. I think that would be a good idea. So I guess the big question here, the consensus of that 500, I'm not sure how you guys, I guess that would be the direction that staff needs to know. Eli?
I think that's a good way to go. I think the half and half.
Aaron?
Yes, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Aaron, are you okay with that 500 3 ways?
Well, it was proportionally 1, 1, and 5, so I don't know if 5, 5, and 5 is the right mix there. But I do think we ought to be open to watching this, and if it's successful, coming back and upping it, because this is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
No, I agree with you there. We'll monitor it.
Yeah, I agree with it for sure. I guess we'll do it like on the draw program, like on a construction site. We take a little and then move on to the next phase.
Aaron?
I agree with that.
Anyway, now I guess for you and staff to work out the details, how to move forward.
We'll put together a resolution and work on the policy moving forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, sorry about that.
Okay, item 2, placer software demonstration.
Yes, hello everyone. Oh, well, there's Wally. Sorry, jumped in too quick there.
You are all good. I was just coming up to introduce you. This is Jeffrey Dawes. He's with Placer, which is software that we recently signed up for. We have a year-long subscription. The main reason we actually got it was to kind of have a quantitative way to look at our changing marijuana industry. Was the biggest reason we signed up for it, to kind of see how our visitor numbers are changing over this year. Mind you, it's only been 2 months so far, so we don't have a lot of information to show how it's been affected yet. But actually, when we get to the marijuana portion of this discussion after this, I'll pass off some of the information that I found out so far. But in the meantime, I'll pass it off to Jeffrey, where he can just give a demonstration of the type of information we can gather from the software. It's not only for the marijuana industry, but that is just the reason that we thought that there was an urgency for us to work with this program to determine it. So I'll pass it off to you unless you all have any questions for me.
No, let's hear what Jeffrey has to say.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, thank you very much for having me today. As Wally said, my name is Jeffrey Dawes. I am the dedicated customer success manager here at Placer for the city of Trinidad. My role working with the city is not only to onboard and train with Wally and co, but also to regularly meet with them to answer any questions about the data, about the products, to consult with ongoing projects, to brainstorm different ideas of how we can find, interpret, present, read, slice and dice all of the data that we have going through our platform, so Wally and the team can use this platform in the most successful, most valuable way for them. So as instructed by Wally today, what I'm going to do is give you a high-level overview of our Placer dashboard. We're going to cover some of the key areas, look at the data, how it can be presented, while he'll be speaking to some more direct examples that are applicable there to the city and the exact projects we're working on. So keep in mind, as we're going through this, we're not going to see every single portion of our platform. It is very robust, but rather we're going to be looking at the highlights. So I work with various different cities and towns, municipalities across the country working with Placer. And so as Wally said, you can use the data in various different ways. With him, he'll be focusing on looking at how the legalization down in New Mexico has affected the foot traffic and the sales coming into the local dispensaries. There are many other ways that you can utilize this data. It is these are just some of them, but not limited to. We can use this data for tourism purposes. What is the reach of the tourism? Where are those visitors coming from? What are the demographics of those visitors look like? We can see that compared to our marketing projects before. How are they successful? Where should we focus moving forward? Where are we missing out? Where is a void in our draw? We can look at retail attractions. We can use the dashboard to look at COVID recovery. We can look at event tracking. What is the time spent at different events, whether it's at a park, an amphitheater, an outdoor district, a single building, location, or business? Where is the origination coming from? We can look at traffic patterns. What's the performance? We can look at workforce. Where is our workforce traveling from? Where has that changed in COVID? What does that recovery look like? How far are employees of certain businesses and areas traveling to get to work? We can also use the platform to compare to other localities, municipalities, even different parks or marinas or different outdoor venues to see how the breakdown, the makeup, and the foot traffic of locations here in Trinidad compared to others across the country. We can also look at the retail leakage of residents and much, much more. So now what we'll do is I will share my screen and we will get into a presentation of the dashboard. Whoever is the host, if you would mind enabling screen sharing, I can present my screen and walk you all through a high-level overview of the dashboard.
As he's getting his screen shared, if you have questions, please speak into the mic. We're having a hard time listening. So, that's what you do. No, we're trying. Okay.
All right, looks like that is enabled. So can everybody see my screen all right here? Is this clear for everyone?
No.
Council can, the audience can't. We're having technical difficulties. It doesn't. We just tried. Sorry. I don't know if anybody. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
All right, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to do a high-level overview. I've picked one of the locations here in town, and what we'll do is take a brief analyzation of the Safeway that we have here in town to look at how the foot traffic data can be used in some of those highlights and key features of our platform. So here we can see we've got various tabs that range from everything to what the trade area looks like. We can look at rankings within chains for certain businesses. We can get info on property ownership. We can look at traffic and everything in between here. So all of our data that we have is, of course, the mobile foot traffic data. All of what we do is go back to January 1, 2017. So we've got just about a 5-year historical view into different places of interest, locations within the city. So here we're looking at a building. We can also geofence various items such as an amphitheater, different parks, river walks. We can even do the whole city of Trinidad itself. So we're not limited to just a physical building or a business. We can expand our view and our reach into various different places within the city. So here what we can look at is we can, as I mentioned, go back to January 1, 2017. We can filter our data down by different demographic filters. We can look at different time filters. We can see visitors, employees, residents, different days of the week. We can look at this in tourism, where different origination of trips are coming from. So we've got a lot of great filters that can really help us segment and dive into the data in very deep ways. So as we can see here, for example, we are, looks like that got cut back off.
Hey, I have a quick question, if you don't mind. I'm sorry. I really feel like I'm missing something here. But you have historical data to 2017?
Yes, he's getting
Yes,
it
sir.
from cell phones.
But okay, thank you, Wally. Can you just give like a super tiny explanation of how you guys get that and what data it actually is? I mean, just super quick, high level.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. So what we are is a mobile foot traffic data company, and how we get our data is we have about 500, a little over 500 or 600 different mobile apps that we partner with. We keep all of our data completely anonymized, so each cell phone or device, we work with iOS and Android, that has one of our partner apps that runs 24/7 location services in the background. So think of something like an Uber or an Postmates or a weather app, something like that, that will run a geolocation 24/7 in the background while the app is on your phone. We partner with apps and are able to get the Latin longs for those individual devices. And so once we have that information from those individual devices, before we came to market, we spent about 6 years working on our algorithms and our ground truths to come up to a 3 to 5% accuracy rate, which we still work on day to day to improve our accuracy and make sure everything is valid and accurate. So we have this mobile data that we get from our partner apps, which are in cell phones, keep it completely anonymized. From there, we have our algorithms we extrapolate into our foot traffic and visit estimates. We not only just have our algorithm that has got us there, we also partner with various brands and teams such as TJ Maxx and Publix and Target, and we take that ground truth data to see the exact people counters that are going into locations, and we take what we have is our data and our extrapolations compared to those various ground truths to come up with our views and our estimates there for our locations. And so does that make sense to you there?
I'm going to say yes.
All right, well, after this as well, I have a few different documents that goes a little bit more into our history, our extrapolation process, our methodology. So after this, I will get a couple of those, send them over to Wally, and from there, he can distribute out through those guys to all of you there at City Council, anyone else who wants to read it. And if there's any follow-up questions after that, I'm happy to speak with anybody one-on-one as a group again to answer any additional questions.
I have other questions, but I'll wait till the end because you might run over them. So okay.
All right, great. So what we'll do is we'll touch on some of our high-level data points here. So as we are looking at our different historical trends, for right now, we're just going to be looking at our Safeway for visits over the past 12 months and use that data. So here we can look at various different data points, such as how many unique visitors came into this Safeway, spent at least 7 to 10 minutes there. This is how we track a visitor coming into our geofenced areas. We can see how many unique visitors are coming in, how many total visits that they have, what is that visit frequency that they come on, what's that average dwell time, how long are they spending in the store. And that gives us a good view into that overall health and performance of a location. We can then look at different trends. We can switch in different metrics such as percent of visits, visits per square foot of a location, and we can look at different aggregations. So we can look at monthly averages. So over the past year, what have been the trend? Has it been trending upwards? Has it had a slight decrease? Were there ups and downs maybe due to seasonality, closures, other various factors, and look at that overall performance in a historical value. We can also look at that at a weekly type of view, which makes it more granular, which is great at looking at if there were any updates to a location, such as adding floodlights to the parking lot, extending hours, doing a remodel. We can even look at it in other ways, such as if a competitor opened up down the street, what effect did that have to the foot traffic coming in? So we can use it not only for our view of a single POI, place of interest, or venue, we can use that as a comparative analysis to competitors for how other influencing factors have changed that foot traffic that are coming into the area. We can even take that lower into a daily breakdown over our defined time periods. What we see here, this is going to be our trade area. And so what this map is showing us here is anybody over the past 12 months, what areas are they coming to visit from? This gives us a great view into the reach and the prowess of a location. Is it very localized? Does it have a regional draw? Does it have a national draw? Do we see any patterns of where those visitors are coming from? Are there any voids in certain areas where maybe we should target a visitor to be coming from, as surrounding areas have high visitation? What can we do to attract people from certain areas and zip codes to bring them into our location? So here we can see the different densities of where people are traveling in from who have visited at least one time, and we can take a step out and really see what that draw is. We can see, of course, up and down the I-25 corridor, and from here we've got huge densities coming from Dallas, from Phoenix, down in Albuquerque, Oklahoma City, and really gives us that view of where our customers are, or where our visits and visitors are originating from, and see that reach in the draw. We can also look at our typical visitor personas. We can break down into ethnicity, household income, what exact zip codes are those visits originating from. Great thing that we can look at also for different things such as retail attraction. We can see different types of cross-shopping. We can see retail leakage. We can look at the favorite places. Anybody who has visited this Safeway in the past year, where else have they gone to visit? Have people been cross-shopping at Walmart? We can see that they have an affinity for a McDonald's. We can see very high levels of people coming right from the airport, insinuating a tourist draw coming in from out of state. This will allow us to see what that affinity is and where those people like to shop. We can use that for various ways, such as an event, if we want to highlight certain partnerships or sponsorships, if we want to have a food truck come to an area. We can see, are people willing to travel to a certain store or location that's far away? We might want to be able to say, hey, that would be a great asset to our community, as our residents and visitors have an affinity for that. What can we do to attract them here into our area? We can break that down into a step further, see what visitors to the Safeway are doing on that same day, so we can see what that shopping pattern looks like of a typical visitor to Safeway and really break into the mind of that consumer on a daily basis. We can see here with our visitor routes, and what this is showing us here is how people get to and from the property. So this can be used in a few different ways. If we wanted to highlight a central square within town or a certain shopping district, we can look at the routes that people are taking to get to that area. We can use that to say this might be a great spot for a new traffic signal. Do we need to add in additional stop signs, maybe a roundabout, or for an event taking place at a park or like a First Friday type art walk? During that event time, where is that traffic flowing in from? We had some issues last time maybe with some traffic congestion. We can use this to see where that traffic is coming in from, maybe place some police in a certain area for additional traffic control. So we can see here that a lot of these data points can be used for all of those various ways I touched on earlier, like is tourism, for economic development. We can look at event tracking, leakage. So all of these data points have multiple applications that we can see. We can break down into our hourly visits, daily visits, how long are people staying at a certain location, and much, much more that we can see here. Some of the other items that we can touch on today is taking our trade area a little bit further. So here, again, we can see our trade area map. We can then break it down by what's the distance that people are willing to travel to come to this area. Are we getting most of our visits from people who are traveling within 10 to 30 miles? Are we getting a good portion of tourist traffic that people are coming in from 250 miles plus away? Which is very interesting to see here for the Safeway is in that past 12 months, just about 100,000 total occurring visits had originated from 250 miles away. We can then also take that one step further. We can look at our trade areas. We can look at the distance by drive time. We can do it in a ring radius by miles. We've got various different parameters that we can set that come along with our different demographic and psychographic reports that will then match to those parameters that we set up above. So here we can see what is that breakdown of people coming to visit this Safeway within a 20-minute drive time. What's that household segment that they are coming from? What is that population exact breakdown from those different segments? Do we want to know what those spending patterns are coming from those visitors within a 20-mile drive range? Do we want to see how those census blocks group down? We have all of this information that we can use to take our map overlays, apply them to our different demographic and psychographic reports. That can be used to see, are we attracting the right target market that we want to bring into town? Do we want to grow a certain segmentation of a younger population while right now that we are overperforming on the some of the older generations? If we want to do some retail attraction, we can run these reports, present that to different retailers to show why it would be a good target fit to be in a certain area.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
you're being redundant in a lot of ways. Could you please be more specific in some of these areas? Because you're being very redundant in a lot of areas.
I just had a little input, if I may. I think this is my gut feeling. This is a lot of information to absorb, this would be my feeling. I think with respect to everybody's time here, at this point, it's fair to say that this is an exceptional amount of information, and I think what would be a good idea, if it's all right with you, Mayor, is we have some discussion and questions, because we're talking about like access to information back to 2017, and you can parse it any which way you want. So I think we should probably have some questions, if that's all right with you.
Let's go and take some questions on this, because it sounds like this will take some time. So, Mr. DeBone, what questions do you have?
Well, what I wanted to say was that's very impressive. There's a lot of hype with data analytics. So you pretty much specialize in helping and developing strategies. I guess you're a data scientist, correct?
I myself am not a data scientist. Well versed in data, came from a GIS company where we made GIS platforms for different economic developers and states, but we've got a massive data science team that puts all of this together, extrapolates it for us, and I'm here to make sure that Wally and the team have all the knowledge, all of these different sections that we're seeing here, completely understand it and know how to apply it to different projects and situations.
Well, how would you compare your data analytics and predictive algorithms with other software companies?
So we are the absolute leader in our arena. There are others that are trying to do the same types of data, but they're really niche. Some people, some of our competitors only focus in credit card sales to look at that information. Some of them only focus in property sales. Nobody else has the same comprehensive view of the mobile foot traffic data that we have. We are, really one of a kind in our realm, as no one else has the depth, the quality, the accuracy of the data that we have.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'm thinking that the most valuable information we can get from your program is to see if Trinidad's made any inroads over the past 5 years as to changing from a pit stop city to a city that people will stay and go not only to Safeway but downtown Trinidad. And I'd really like to be interested in the data you have from the people that visit the cannabis stores. What happens to those guys after they go into that store? Are they pit stopping at cannabis shops, or are they staying as well? And I think if we have that data, then we can understand if all of our efforts geared toward tourism is working, or if we're stuck in the mud kind of thing. That's where I think that data is more important than anything.
Right, absolutely. And we've got this whole section here dedicated to that visitor journey. So we can, set that up for any of the cannabis shops in town to see if they're going to one of them, are they cross-shopping going to other ones. We can set time filters to see how long they're staying at those cannabis shops. We can see, how many visits they have. What was the cross-shopping comparison looking like in 2021 versus 2020 versus 19? See how that changes historically. See, do people still cross-shop? Are they spending the same amount of time? And we have all of that data that we can look at those individual stores and see what happens in that historical view.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm interested in, is this in place for the city of Trinidad, or are they selling this project, this
We have
software?
a subscription. It's online with them, but we have a subscription.
So we're, in effect, we can get any information we want from them, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And then who is this distributed to? To the city manager, or to different businesses, or how do we get the information out to everyone?
There's a few of us on the city staff that have been getting trained on how to use this software to look at things, and then we would be the ones that people can come to and ask those types of questions.
Right.
Like I said, the primary reason that we thought there was an urgency to subscribe to this was to look at the changing trends specifically to the cannabis industry. But yeah, we can use it to find out all this different information that is available on here.
Is it a renewable subscription every year, or is it
Yes,
in place all the time?
It would be renewable each year. So
The same company?
Yep. So we have this one for 1 year at this point, and then at the end of that year, we can decide if we want to renew it or not.
What does that cost you on the subscription?
$12,000.
$1,000 per month. Yep.
Ms. Ogletree, do you have any questions?
I think this is fascinating. I'm particularly fascinated to find that there's such a huge contingent among our visitors who come here from 250 miles away. That's a great thing for us, and it's something that we might imagine that is so, but it's good to know that that's so. So when you're out and about, you can be an ambassador for Trinidad with the people who are coming here to make sure that they are having a positive experience and feel welcome. I think it's a good thing. I'm happy that we have this information.
Yeah, and as you guys mentioned, there's tons of stuff in here. I really don't want to overwhelm everyone, but I mean, we have so much data. Like, we can even tell you, which zip codes they're coming in from, how many days are they staying for. They tend to stay on weekdays or weekend days. We have so much, additional information that we can show, and you can really get super, super granular into those travel patterns, into those habits, to be able to really understand those travel, visitation, demographic information about those visitors, about different residents, employees of areas.
Naaman.
So yeah, I just signed up to your app on the phone right now as I'm sitting here and going through your app right here. It's pretty user friendly. I got the free trial subscription for my business. It seems like you guys have dialed in the data from other information sites that collect people's data. Is there a security risk here at all with other people's data and government data?
No, that is one of our key tenets that we base ourselves on. So our key tenets are quality, accessibility, and privacy. Off the top of my head right now, we just got one of the highest security and privacy ratings that we can get for all of our data. And so it's very secure, it's completely anonymized. So once we have those partner apps on a phone, we're all about places, not about people. So you're not gonna be able to come into here and knock on someone's door who went to Safeway 15 times and say, here's a gift card, thanks for coming that often. We don't say, about the people. We pride ourselves in our privacy, our anonymity, and our security, and keep that all here secure and safe within our platform.
And this data is not for sale to outside sources?
Yes, we do not do any kind of data brokerage. Some of the other competitors in our realm are data brokers, or they source all of their data from third parties and don't do any of their own collection extrapolation. That's what we do, is all of our data is proprietary, it is our own, and we do not sell or brokerage any of our data.
Okay.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate your zealousy in that. I'm always impressed when people know products that well, and it is just impressive. And I think this is very impressive. I did want to say, having a library card in my back pocket doesn't make me the smartest man on the planet. It gives me access to a bunch of information, but it's how you use that information. So I really like that people are being trained how to use it, and I think that's going to be super critical, and it's obvious that there's a ton of information from it. I did have some questions about that information. How do you prove the efficacy of this? Do you know of 100% of cell phones walking around at any given time? How many cell phones are you actually tracking? Because it is app dependent from what I understand. Do you have that answer?
Yeah, so we are in about, right now, I believe 33 million devices across the country between iOS and Android. So our sample size, our panel size is about 10% of the entire population. You compare that to someone else like a Nielsen that has maybe 20,000 total sample size that they extrapolate their data from. So we are above and beyond much higher than any of those other data type companies for our sample sizes.
Okay, so when we say look at trips to Safeway, we're actually looking at a 10th of the trips to Safeway.
So no, what we're seeing here is we have our data that we constantly test against ground truths. We have our algorithms that extrapolate the data to see here. So we're not saying right here, the 500,000 visits to Safeway in the past year is only 10% of what they totally are. These are those foot traffic estimates that we are able to get within that 3 to 5% accuracy through our algorithms that we write, through our ground testing that we constantly do, that brings us into that 3 to 5% accuracy range.
Maybe I didn't make myself clear. or I'm not understanding the answer. Say if there's 100 cell phones in use in Trinidad at any one time, how many of those cell phones can you prove that you're actually tracking? Because some cell phones may not have an app that you're partnered with.
Yeah, so I think this will get to your question. For any location, the only amount that we need to extrapolate into our data is the minimum amount of devices is 50 devices for us to be able to extrapolate data into areas.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if a total population in this town is 100 cell phones, how many of those cell phones are you able to look at? Because it is app dependent, right?
Right. So yes, about 10% of those phones
okay, so that
would be our sample size.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. You're extrapolating this information at 10% of the actual public, yeah?
Right, exactly.
Okay,
correct.
all right.
Yes. Yeah. So 33 million. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing, and I mean, and that's fine. That's how statistics work, right? So the other thing I wanted to ask is, since we have a subscription with you, can we do the same analysis in other cities, or are we limited to our city boundaries?
We can
no,
do
you
other
guys
locations.
can any place within the United States. So you can do any other building, business. You can geofence an area up to 200 square miles. So
Okay.
yeah, anywhere else in the U.S. Is fair game for you guys to get the data for.
Okay, the last question I had is you were going through a lot of demonstration there. Is it possible to sort of extrapolate like Airbnb or short-term rental traffic into town using your program there?
There are ways that we can slice and dice data into some of those different kind of stays. So we can geofence certain areas and we can set some of our filters to the length of stay, where their home origination comes from. At this point, we're not solely for the residential to track the exact Airbnbs. We can use the data and these different filters to get an idea of what some of those Airbnb rentals are, but at this point, we wouldn't be able to say, here's how many Airbnb places that you have with the people coming in. We can use our data and set different filters to get an overview or an idea, but not drill down exactly for Airbnb purposes.
Okay, I think this is great. I really like it. I just think it's super important that we are able to have find some way to partner with businesses so they can use that information and not also just overwhelm somebody with this work.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your time this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all for having me. If there's any other questions, Wally has all my info. You guys can pass them along. I'm happy to chat with anyone, and you guys have the subscription here. So if anybody needs access, we can get them on. And yeah, well, Wally would be happy to show you there live in person. I'm fortunately up in Denver, so not exactly super close, but not super far away.
Jeff, this is Phil. I think this is a very important tool for our community at this time because it allows us to help our businesses market their individual business. And I think that is, and it's not just strictly cannabis, it's across all sectors. And I think that is the most important thing. As we move toward more of a tourism destination, it's going to become even more so important moving forward. And I think just all of the data that you were able to show that it would just overwhelm anybody. And sometimes more data doesn't mean more business, doesn't mean it could just overwhelm you to, for instance, if Wally and your team was using this, it can overwhelm you. So I'm sure that you will take the time to look at which data is the most beneficial for the use of our community, and which something that you could take a quick look at that would be beneficial to any business in the community. I think that's important. One thing I have, Jeff, is that out of curiosity, do you have any idea, because you know that every cell phone, you can turn off your locator. Do you know if is there any statistics out there that show how many people actually turn off that tracking data?
So to give this, I don't have an exact number, but I'll tell you this is think of the data that we get when an Uber or something says, do you want to use the location all the time or only when using? So we would have around, I think, 170 million different devices that we could pull the data for that say, hey, we're only using it when the device is on. We don't want that data, so we want that data that flows in 24/7. So there's hundreds of millions of devices that we could pull from, but that just aren't on all the time. We could get partial data. So I don't know off the top of my head, but last time that I spoke with my team, we were around 170 million devices that had the data, but not in the 24/7 geolocation flow. And those are the ones that we want to use for our sample size and our extrapolation.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Wally.
Go ahead.
How is council going to get that information? Just going to kind of transfer that information to us at certain times, or if there's something that's drastic?
My recommendation would be at least on a quarterly basis. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if you feel anything, more than that, but.
Well, I think that I'll need you all to kind of give me input on what information you want, because as we know that we can gather a whole lot of information out of this. Like I've said a couple times, what we have been looking at so far primarily has been the effect of cannabis industry. So we've actually asked for geofencing around all of the dispensaries in Trinidad. We've also asked for geofencing around most of the dispensaries along the border in New Mexico. We've also looked at geofencing, or requested geofences for all the liquor stores in Trinidad, just as something to kind of compare it to, as well as hotels. And we'll just kind of over time break it down to more different segments of our economy. But as of right now, we've been primarily trying to use it to look at the cannabis stuff. Right now, I gave you a little piece of information that we've been able to gather from it at this point. But
Before you go on, I just want to mention one thing that might be good is I think it would be a good idea for you to get with Crystal Dryling to see how many people are beginning to come into Fisher's Peak.
Yep.
To utilize it, because I think the survey that they did a little over a year ago was quite elaborate. It was pretty big, and to kind of see what that trend is over the next few years. I think this is a good use of, that $12,000 is very minimal on what I think it could produce.
yeah, and I agree. I think there's I think there's a lot of uses we can use for it. I think with Talitha, she's applying for different grant programs. Last year she was literally counting cars on Santa Fe. Now we can go to this and see how many cars are going through a certain area. We can also just take a segment of the highway and see how many people. I actually did that, and we have almost 20,000 cars that drive through Trinidad every day. And how we can crunch that number into comparing now to the winter to et cetera and stuff like that. So as you all saw, there's just so much information that we can gather from this that I just kind of need some direction from you of what different things we would like to look at over
I
time.
think one place to start was for you and your team to put together the items that you feel that are necessary across all sectors of the market in Trinidad. Bring those forward and let us look at them and see if there's anything else we want to add to it. And let's take a look. I think that's probably the best way from what I could see that we could use.
Mayor, can I ask the question of Wally?
Sure.
Hi, Wally, do you share, or do you plan to share this information with the tourism board? Because I'm sure this would be something that would be very helpful to them in guiding their efforts.
Yes, and Marty Hackett also has been invited to the training sessions for this, and we'll have her own login credentials where she can pull up anything that the tourism board may want to find out from this information as well.
All right, great. Thank you, that's all.
And marketing strategies, we can pick Fruta, geofence Fruta, and see where everybody comes from, and then, start marketing where they came from and say, hey, stop here too.
I think this has huge potential. It really does.
I want to know how many people buy double shot espresso lattes at Starbucks.
Okay, I'll see if they can Start breaking it down really far. And I bet they have the Starbucks app as a partner, so they might be able to get us a glimpse.
If there was no other further questions, Jeff, I know you had a lot of other stuff to show, but I think we're going to cut it a little short. I think we got the information that I think council wanted to hear. We feel that it's very beneficial, and, you know, whoever thought of this, I think was a good idea, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Me too. Yes, well, thank you everyone for having me. If there's any additional questions as I mentioned, Molly, please feel free to give out my info. Here to help you guys be successful, utilize all this data in the appropriate and best ways you can. And once again, thank you for allowing me to come in and do this demonstration this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you all.
On to item 3, marijuana business discussion. Is that you, Wally, or who is it?
How's that?
It is, I think it is Rusty.
Seriously?
Seriously.
No.
Seriously. Welcome home.
Yeah.
And as a lead into it, I could tell you about what some of this information I just handed off to you is. If that's all right with you.
Go ahead.
Cool. So, like I said, so with this software, we're able to draw our own geo fencing segments and find out information over like a square little block. However, I'm actually requesting that the company itself goes in and geofences different businesses to give us the most accurate information that we have. However, at this point, I just went ahead and did a sample size of 7 different cannabis dispensaries in town to see what their visitation numbers were from 2017 to 2022. And so that first line is how many visits per 1,000 that have visited just in the months of April and May of 2022. And then the average of 2017 through 2021. Again, these are just April and May. I didn't do the entire year just so we can compare apples to apples. And then also we did 2021 just because that was kind of an anomaly. It was our biggest year we'd ever had with cannabis sales. So we separated it. But you can see from that the percentage of cannabis that's or visitors to our stores compared to last year is down anywhere from, actually one of them is up, but most of them are down from 1% to 65%. You can see from the average that one of them, again, or 2 of them are up there, but that the majority of them are down. One of them is down as far as 75% of the visitors that they were getting from last year, or from the average. And then you can also see where the visitors are coming from. So the average of all of the visitors to our dispensaries that live within 10 miles of the dispensary only accounts for 11% of the visitors. Meanwhile, visitors that are coming from over 100 miles away accounts for 79.9% of our visitors. So you can see that the driving force of our cannabis industry are people that are coming from over 100 miles away.
Sorry I missed this. Can you explain one more time the difference between percent from average and percent from 2021?
So the average is April and May from 2017 to 2021. And so that is 100 divided by that average number times 2022, where the other one is 100 divided by the number from 2021 times the number from 2022.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I just really wanted to stress from this is how many people are coming from less than 10 miles away and how many people are coming from over 100 miles away. And that really, if it were just the residents of this community that were frequenting these stores, I don't think any of them would probably stay in business. And so it's going to be essential for us to continue pulling people from outside of our community.
And this chart and all this here, which is good information, but is there any survey done on why it's dropped?
No.
And how would we know what's going on?
Well, for me, the reason I did only April and May as opposed to January through May was because April 1st was the day that was legalized in New Mexico.
I understand.
So that's the main variable that I'm measuring from this. But there could be other things like gasoline prices
and everything else.
Yeah,
so that's what we're
totally. I agree. I think there's a lot of components to this. Other than that, but this specifically, that is the one changed variable.
Before, is there any and I know Rusty, is there any way to attribute, and obviously we can't discuss which store, but why one of them is showing a marked increase from the average?
That one is actually a little bit different because that one was not open in 2017 and 2018.
So there's a reason for the anomaly.
Yeah, mind you, I did change the average. That was only divided by 3 instead of 5 years.
Okay.
But that one is showing a major increase over what it was in the previous years, probably just because more people know about it than the year it opened and the year after. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Wally?
Yes.
Wally, this is Erin. I don't have what it is that you're looking at. Is there any ways anybody could get that to me? It wasn't on the drive.
I just texted.
Whatever it is that you're looking at wasn't on the drive.
I just texted to you, Erin, on your
Sorry?
cell. I just texted to you on your cell phone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Go ahead, Rusty.
All right, I'll make it quick on my part. I just wanted to thank City Council for taking the time to finally sit down with the industry to start seeing how we can keep the industry sustainable into the future. I want to thank the members of the industry that showed up tonight. We appreciate y'all very much. We have not just shop owners, but we also have growers and concentrate makers both. So we'll get I think a wide variety of recommendations or what their thoughts on what they think may help move the industry forward. Stuff like helping with contamination on grows, heavy metals, pesticides, from possible consumption clubs to possible private property events for 420 permits to allow 420 events to bring people in, making it a destination, to possible lowering of taxes, our fee structure on the exporting of marijuana that would make Trinidad growers more competitive on the market. So that's just a brief overview of some of the stuff you're going to hear. I'm hoping out of this will also come someone from the industry that will have enough time to become the liaison that's needed between City Council and the industry, and not a third party. Being on the council before, it was easy for me talking with the industry and to bring up stuff while I was on the dais. I'm not looking to come back in here and be a liaison. I don't work in the industry and I'm not an elected official. I think it should be between y'all and someone from the industry that can represent everybody and start to form a better relationship where y'all can move forward to make this sustainable into the future. So I'll let these guys come up in whatever order they can. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Russ.
Okay, I'm not sure who wants to start, but please come forward and state your name.
Good evening, everybody in City Council. My name is Tom Wilczynski. I'm the owner of Trinidad Gardens. And we, a while back, sent a letter to Audra, and I don't know if she passed it out to everybody. She said she was going to distribute it, but I do have copies of the letter if anyone hasn't seen it. Sitting here, we're new to the area. We purchased the M&M dispensary about a year ago from the Reyeses and the Michelenzas. We have a couple of dispensaries north up in Fort Collins and Greeley, and we've been here in Trinidad for about a year, and our purpose for purchasing is because we fell in love with the city of Trinidad, and we felt it would be a nice addition to our dispensaries and cultivations. We presented this letter, and in the letter, we talked about hospitality and delivery. And the presentation given by the company with the algorithms was right on. And I was listening to the council members and your responses and feedback to them, and it's exactly what hospitality in retail or in delivery would do. Looking at the letter that we put together, this would be a way for declining dispensaries to recapture some of their sales with hospitality and delivery. It's a way to retain the visitors and the folks that are visiting the city on the weekends. The information that you can get out of that is very valuable. It's demographic information that would help the city figure out how we can help retain some of the visitors and our tourists. And in this letter that we put together, we did kind of outline some items, and if I can read verbatim, hospitality advantages. It creates a safe place for locals and tourists to consume and socialize. It offers something that New Mexico does not yet allow, which is consumption in a safe place to consume. It could promote and increase business and tourist patrons to shop and eat at local, non-marijuana businesses, especially downtown. It decreases public consumption in parks and riverfronts, and it would create a cleaner area for the riverfront and focus for citizens and tourists. Currently, industry employees rent homes and apartments here in Trinidad. A lot of their landlords don't allow them to even smoke in their own home. So it would allow some of the folks who are in the industry a safe place to consume if you were to allow hospitality. All current cannabis business license holders would have the opportunity of additional revenue streams, participation opportunities for other local businesses, i.e. restaurant food delivery, new revenue stream for Trinidad. And I'll give you a good example. We own the building at 420, 418, 420, 422 Commercial. You've seen the building next to the Toyota dealership. It's a large building, approximately 18,000 square feet. Our plan was to expand the cultivation. Right now we're on hold for the expansion of the cultivation because part of the problem why we're seeing a big decrease in sales across the states, sales are down 40% across the state. It's not a Trinidad thing. It's a statewide thing. And the problem is supply and demand. We have too much supply and not enough demand. Okay, that's what happened. You're wondering what happened? We grew too much. There's too much weed on the market right now. Okay, and everybody, right now, the wholesale price dropped from roughly $1,200 a pound to $500 a pound. It's an all-time low. Back in 2015, when we first experienced this, it dropped down to $800 a pound, and the industry thought the sky was falling. Well, it's worse now. It's really bad. Okay, so we're looking for ways. As a matter of fact, I have an article for you folks if you want it. I brought it along over the weekend. Buddy Boy, who owns 7 stores in Denver, closed their doors. And here's the article, and I'll pass it out and you guys can make copies. Buddy Boy was a big company, 7 stores in Denver, cultivation. They can't do it anymore. They can't pay their employees. When the price of a pound is $500, it's hard to sell. So you're gonna see a lot of this. I've been in the business since 2008. We opened our first store in 2009. I was in medical. I've seen all the ups and downs of this industry, and it is bad. It is bad right now, the worst it's ever been. But Trinidad has a unique opportunity. We are still the first city that people cross coming over from New Mexico. We have Texas tourism, we have Oklahoma tourism, Arizona, New Mexico. I'm not discouraged by this. What I'm encouraged by is that you folks are stepping up and looking for ways to retain that business and help the businesses that are here. I'm impressed, I'm excited because we have an opportunity to do that here, okay? That program, my background, before I got into this world, I was in the financial world with Wells Fargo and Lehman Brothers. We worked with a lot of programs like this. We did feasibility studies, demographic studies. You can pull out so much information out of that program that you can extrapolate not only where these people are coming from, but where they're staying. I mean, you can look at your hotels and see, are they booked? Where are these people coming from? And then you can target what we need here. Do we need more hotels? Do we need more restaurants? getting back to the whole hospitality thing, if we do this and we do it right, we're gonna be bringing people in, let's, you know, as a destination. If we have a hospitality center like the one that I wanna propose, it can be a lounge, a consumption lounge, where people can come in and purchase, not alcohol, but food, and they can purchase it Amsterdam style, a little bit of cannabis, a little bit of wax, and consume it there in a nice, comfortable, you know, environment. I have a building big enough to do an event center, where we can bring in events over the weekend that cater to the 420 crowd, and people come in to Trinidad. It gives them a safe place to consume, listen to music. Okay, there are a lot of different things that this can do to really ease the pain of the declining sales of the cannabis shops, as well as strengthening Trinidad's place in the cannabis market. Again, if they're coming here, they're not going to go on to Denver. They're not going to go on to Pueblo. They're going to stay here in Trinidad, and they're going to enjoy what we have to offer in Trinidad. These consumption centers, it will help the other businesses. We talk about the restaurants. If we do one, a hospitality lounge in our building, we're not going to serve food. We're going to let the restaurants in the area display their menus and come in and order food and have it delivered. Okay, those are some of the things that we envision that can happen with hospitality. I also brought along, if anyone wants a copy of the application for the state of Colorado, and this is the application for the marijuana hospitality and business license. Okay, you'll notice the reason I'm bringing this up, because there's 3 ways that you can have a hospitality license. You can have a pure hospitality license, where there's one where the hospitality doesn't actually...
We have several people.
Okay, I can bring this up, but if anyone wants this, because this is the preliminary icebreaker conversation, but there are several different types of hospitality licenses, and we can get specific down the road, but I just wanted to bring that up if anyone has any questions.
Well, let's do this, then we got, how many, just out of curiosity, how many people do we have in the audience that want to present? Raise your hand for me, please.
Pardon me?
1, 2, 3.
3 more?
3 more? That way it gives us.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I ask you a question?
You certainly can if we have time.
Well, I
to do
mean,
that.
yeah, just a really quick one. You said the sales of marijuana are down in Colorado, right?
Correct.
Are they down everywhere else? Have you did a survey?
Right now, just in Colorado, it's basically just Colorado, because they control the supply and demand in Colorado. We don't have any supply coming in from other states, but yes, California is really hurting, Washington's hurting, Oregon's hurting. All of them are pretty much down, except for some of the newer states like New Jersey, who just came online, and it's kind of an exciting thing, and, you know, it's new. But they've mellowed out here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
Good evening, Council. My name is Brian Dykes. I'm the Operations Manager for Freedom Road here in Colorado.
Is that Brian?
Yep. So we've been operating here in Trinidad since 2015. We opened a cultivation and 2 dispensaries, and really what I wanted to discuss tonight was the $25 per pound excise tax that Trinidad places on producers in this area. Trinidad is one of the only municipalities that I'm aware of that does a flat tax fee like that. It's very punitive to local producers and local businesses. It also gives a big advantage to companies outside of Trinidad that are operating dispensaries in here. If I'm Native Roots and I grow my product up in Denver and I'm bringing it down to my shop in Trinidad, I'm not paying a $25 pound excise tax on that. Freedom Road, I grow product north of town, I send it to my dispensary on Main Street, I pay a $25 extra per pound excise tax on that product. So I guess what I really want to get across to council is, in deciding who or what you want to do to help the industry, is it those of us that have been here from the beginning, or is it the outside interests that have come in recently and aren't really providing a lot of jobs? They aren't really providing a lot of revenue that they're keeping within the community. It's all driving out of Trinidad, going back up to Denver, going back up to other communities. So I feel one of the things that would really help us is removing that tax from our manufacturing. It's been really stifling. I've got some industry friends back there that I would love to partner with and do some really neat things. Be able to send my trim to have processed into other products, but with that $25 pound tax, I can't do that. The other thing about that tax is that there's a wide variety in the products that we grow. Trim right now in our market wholesale is going for $50 a pound. It is literally more economical for me to throw that in the trash than to sell it. Because I sell it for $50, the city charges me $25 a pound in taxation for that. The price of flour, yeah, it's gone from $1,200 to $450 to $550 a pound. It isn't even really worth selling it if you're a grower in Trinidad. I'm also aware of several dispensaries that have opened up recently in Trinidad who then purposely built their cultivations up in Pueblo or outside of this community because of that $25 pound fee. So it's just something that I'd really like the council to consider reassessing. Maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe you allow transfers within the county to be excluded from it. Maybe you allow affiliated transfers, and what I mean by that is if I'm growing my product and then I'm selling it in my store, you don't tax me twice because you're taxing me out of the grow and then you're taxing me again when I sell at the dispensary with the sales tax that I have locally. So that's kind of the big issue that I wanted to bring up tonight. The state handles this in a percentage of sale rate, which I think is a lot more reasonable because then as the market price fluctuates, so does the tax rate that we end up paying. So, just want to make sure that was it. Yeah, that's pretty much the big point that I want to bring up tonight. And then if you guys had, any other interest in having additional work sessions with us, where maybe it could be just cannabis, so we could actually sit here and have some time to talk to you guys rather than feel like we're rushing you.
Yeah, we wanted to just have the cannabis industry tonight at least to come forward and talk to us a bit. And
sure.
We could probably schedule a different work session where we could just target that specifically.
Right. Okay. So, but overall, that's my big thing. The excise tax is really punitive to local operators, and it really gives kind of an unfair advantage to those entities that have come in recently and started operating in our town. So,
I had a question. I mean, what would the administrative means to change that to reflect more of a statewide method of
so I can speak to that if you'd like to.
Well, I think that's a question for staff, and I think it would take an ordinance change.
That purely an ordinance change?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because a percentage based on our sale rate would make much more sense than $25 per pound.
And that could be accomplished through an ordinance change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Okay, who's next?
Get it.
Mayor Rico, City Council.
Good evening, sir.
I kind of want to iterate on what he was saying there too, with the taxes there. When the price of the flour and trim are so low, it's a huge disadvantage. I have a grow that has 10,800 plants in the ground last year, 10,800 this year. We didn't increase this year because of stuff that's happening in the market and whatnot. So, but right now we have a lot of products that we're not wanting to transfer because I can go buy it out of Denver or Pueblo or wherever and pay $50 a pound for it. There's no need for a transfer for it. So then that's coming back and also affecting you guys on tax revenues there. So, when it's like it is right now, it is better to not grow it than and buy it right now. When the price is super high, when it's $1,200-$1,500 a pound, and the trim's $350 a pound, it's a different story. But right now it is, so it's something that's kind of flows with the market is something that is definitely needed for us down here. That was not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is that somewhere, someone in the, they're getting sprayed. From this, we don't know where it's coming from, but the city sprays for pesticides, you know, for mosquitoes all summer long, the railroad sprays, we're pretty confident that that's where it's at. I'm talking with the Department of Agriculture today. They're sending some people down on Thursday, and then the county. And what that's going to do to the industrial park out there with some of these things that are happening out there, if we can't get some help to find out where it's coming from, that will go away eventually too. It will not be a usable plot for growing product
Hey, Aaron,
if it keeps going.
not to interrupt, but go into what happened with last year's crop so they understand kind of.
So I'm a MIP. I'm a grow and a MIP out there. I own Main Street Cannabis, the one just right up the street here. It looks like a little gas station. Been here since almost the beginning, I think it was. I mean, we didn't get our store open right away and stuff. We've been here from the beginning. I'm a Trinidadian now. This is my home. I live here. I don't hardly ever leave. We're down here and we've got this stuff going out there. And last year, the state implemented new rules for testing for pesticides and stuff into concentrates. Whatever is being sprayed in the city or the railroads or wherever the spray is coming from, it's affecting all of us out there. Every single grow out there has been affected by this. The MED in the state of Colorado, like, you can go buy an apple, if you tested it for pesticides, it might be 500 parts per billion. It is not the same as what we have 40 parts per billion on pesticides, for a lot lower. Heavy metals, all of the stuff are a lot more stringent on us. So what's happening is someone's spraying, these pesticides are drifting and getting on parts of our product, which this year it was a permethrin, which is a thing for mosquitoes, and it's in pretty much every single weed killer and pesticide and herbicide there is. And that then is getting onto the plants, which is it's a soluble product that will dissipate over time and everything. And it's on the little bit that's getting on plants I should have brought some test results to show you. It would have said LOD, LOQ, non-detected. And LOD is limit of detection, limit of quantity, and non-detected. And basically, it's saying that there's none, very little, or there's some, and we can pretty much kind of count it all out. The thing with permethrins and THC molecules is, so the flower passes, and it's fine, and it's good. It's got very little stuff in there, and that's still a sellable product, but on the open market, people look at your test results and they're like, now that 450 that's selling for 500 right now, they're like 200.
Let me ask a question real quick. Mr. Valentine, are we spraying out there ourselves?
We do not spray mosquitoes in industrial park.
Okay. Here's the other question I have for you is, I know that promethium is a mosquito killer. That's been brought up before. There are other items for mosquito spraying that I guess are not as bad as the promethium. And I don't know if that would be something that, even though we don't do any spraying out there, would that be something for you to talk to, whether if it's the agricultural industry or if it's the railroad industry, to see if maybe if they're spraying out there or who's spraying?
They are spraying. I've got their.
Could they use an alternate that would be?
And that's what, and we're working on it. Like I said,
I think that would be a discussion we'd have with them.
Yeah, I'm very diligently working on this. But
you did say it's also an herbicide, though, right?
They put it in pretty much. Permethrin is one of those things it's like sugar and soda, kind of thing. So there's probably an okay analogy of it. I'm not a scientist here, so but that's kind of basic, like sugar and soda, you know, caffeine in sodas for the most part. In the permethrins, for my industry, for what I'm basically doing out there is the THC molecule and the permethrin molecules are very similar. The way we extract THC pulls THC and it pulls permethrins. And so now that is making it very, very hard to do what I do. And so it's a ongoing concern with that kind of stuff out there. We just need to find out where it's coming from, and hopefully, and from everything I found out so far up until today, it's the railroad. I'm pretty sure if I was a betting man, I would say the railroad.
Well, I think a good way to segue for this would be for you to, if you could find out definitely if that's where it's coming from. And then like we already said that this conversation is going to have to go on in the near future to have another specific.
Right, and
I think you bring that information to us so we have some idea as to where I move forward.
That's one of the things I'm going to need to do is like I'm going to come and talk with who I never need to talk to, and like what pesticides are getting used, whatever it is you guys were spraying, I can take that and I can send it off for testing. They'll be able to tell pretty accurately railroad, city, county, whatever, and where it's coming from. We can eliminate certain things from it if going forward, you know, and so we could, you know, eliminate the city. And
Mr. Valentine, how far north are we spraying?
To Cougar Canyon area, and then our city limit stops at basically North Avenue. We have a little few jogs up there, but North Avenue.
Okay. I get the reason for the question is whatever we're spraying, is it advancing that far?
exactly, and that's just how the pattern is. What I've seen out there. That's why I don't think it's you guys. I don't think it is. The railroad track is from me to the street out there.
Yeah.
You guys are, and when you look at the other groves that I've talked to, the one down below Big R, from what I understand, you know, we're not affected. They didn't get, and my groves on the side of by the interstate. My other buildings on the other side by the interstate were not affected.
Okay, let's go ahead and move forward with somebody else that has some questions.
All right, thank you,
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
Let's get him to identify himself.
What was it, give us your name again so that we can.
Aaron Sherman.
Aaron Sherman, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Mayor, council, thanks for having us tonight. I'll be short and brief. You all know me. Been here 44 years. We were the first recreational dispensary in Trinidad. We've been here since 2014, November. City opened up their legs and opened up 26 dispensaries in this town. If you don't think hospitality is not needed here, there's something wrong with your thinking. Okay? You guys took advantage of all these fees and all this licensing and all this other stuff, and then you send them back out of town. Give them a safe place to go. Please, whether it's in the hotels, whether it's a private event, whether it's anything, a place to start would be amazing for this industry. And the gentleman earlier said New Mexico isn't allowing it. According to my knowledge, they are allowing it. So we're already behind New Mexico when it comes to that. Okay? We need somewhere for these people to go safely and enjoy it. We had events at one time and that got shut down. Everything was going great, but you know, it's Trinidad, small town, and everybody's got to have their issues. The biggest thing is, like I said, is the excise taxes. If you guys can reduce, eliminate, anything you guys can do to do that, that would be amazing. Because you know, Mrs. Navarrete sees the checks that we cut every month to the city, and it's a good amount of money. So anything you guys can do to help that would be amazing.
I guess the big question that I have, and this would be for everybody, we want to bring everybody back, would be what kind of marketing your the local industry is doing here? Are you just waiting for them to come, or are you doing
I'm on
social
Weed
media?
Maps, Leafly,
Okay.
Leaf Buyer, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, 7 days a week.
Okay. No, that's what I wanted.
We're marketing the hell out of Trinidad on a daily basis.
I can say no other industry in town spends as much time or money promoting online as the cannabis industry.
The first thing I do after I come home from the gym is update our menus, update all our stuff.
Okay.
I got a question.
Tens of thousands a month.
What are your declines, or what are your numbers saying that, or can you?
I would say anywhere from 15 to 20% on the recreational side.
Okay.
But on the medical side, we've actually increased.
Okay.
Because we are one of only 3, I believe, that have medical shops in Trinidad.
Gotcha.
So we take care of our locals. You know, that's our cherry on top.
Aaron's got it. Aaron.
Aaron, do you
Sir,
have a question?
I'm sorry that I can't see you very well, and I didn't hear your name or what store you're with, so I just wanted to
I
make
didn't
sure.
even say that because I didn't. It's Robert Schultz with Trinidad Tire calling you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay.
But like I said, I'll be short on that. I don't have a speech on that. My wife, Kim. I'm not as pretty as her either, but.
I wouldn't say that.
Anything you guys can help this industry, because we all know inflation is hitting hard. We're all paying $5+ a gallon, $6 if you're driving a diesel.
Yeah.
You know, it's a combination of factors. It's not just New Mexico.
Right.
People have to spend an extra $100 just to buy some hamburger and bologna and bread right now.
Yeah.
You know, we go into Trinidad Builders and a piece of plywood is, I don't even want to say what it is because it changes daily.
Yeah.
And what other industry in America is lowering their prices right now instead of increasing their prices? Cannabis. Everybody else is increasing across the board. And we are still lowering and lowering and lowering and lowering just to try to make ends meet.
And largely that's because we have to compete with these outside entities that are coming in.
There's 26 of us here in Trinidad. If we would have been like all these other cities across the state that have limited to 8, 10,
We'd all be
you wouldn't have this. You wouldn't have this right now. And I understand you guys didn't decide that, but you have to deal with it now. So, saddle up.
Hey, who's anybody else?
Did you speak? Yeah, perfect. I just want a couple of points. I know some of them get up here and you feel rushed and you skip over some things. A couple of points when Aaron was talking about the heavy metal and pesticide contamination, he went to the railroad to talk to him. He got in the front door and they told him, there's no one here to talk to you, and shut the door and he's out. It's more of what can you do to help open that door, because they won't open the door to speak to them. That's something City Council can assist with, is getting that door open. Work out something where we don't spray in the 2 months during the flower, where it's more gonna absorb the stuff, where it tests hot and it's an unsellable product. New Mexico passed at 2 ounces per purchase, where New Mexico or Colorado's at 1. Something to look at is possibly go to state legislation and say, hey, we need to be on a level playing field. Can you look at possibly approaching the state and saying maybe we can raise our limit to 2 to match what New Mexico's doing to help bring more people in here? It's stuff like that that will be helpful to the industry that I've noticed in me taking notes that I think will make a big difference. Once again, thank you for your time, and I really, go ahead.
I had an observation or question. I think it's really important, the chemical and metals contamination. I would think that we're not unique to this. I think, and I know you mentioned that the food industry has much higher allowable limits, but when you look at organic producers of any organic products, they're governed by this too, and there's been, I would suspect there's been prior legal actions required to ensure, because as an owner of land, you should have your rights to use that land as necessary, and adjacent landowners should be able to affect that. I think that we'd be able to find something to help leverage that action to the railroad. I mean,
And I think it's probably pretty unique, if you look at all the commercial grows throughout this state, how many border along within 20 feet from a railroad line, it's probably gonna be a pretty small number.
but I mean, it's probably existed with.
It probably has county spraying and everything else gonna affect, so I think it's something that, it's not a matter of them not trying to approach these businesses and saying, hey, this is what you're doing, it's, can you help open that door to help them get into that industry or get that conversation started with the railroad, with the county, or whoever the case may be, because now the county's receiving tax too. They got, they're in this game and they need to protect the industry just as much as the city does. It's a big part of revenue.
I'll do this. I do have a connection to the vice president of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad.
Nice.
I will call him tomorrow, see if I can get in touch with him and ask him if there is anybody else that we can connect with. And I don't know who I need to pass this information off to, which one of the people in the industry here.
Any of them that have grows out there that were contaminated last year, I mean, I'm sure that reaching out to any of them, the word can be passed along. I hope they're exchanging information with each other and they can start communicating to work together with the council for a better future.
And we also have an email chain,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, for marijuana industry.
Oh, we do.
And it might, like I said, I'll try to open that door and see if we can get a conversation. We'll see what happens.
And these are the kind of results, I was envisioning happening when I helped set this meeting up is, and right away, that's a major help, Mr. Mayor, that you can open a door they can't.
Where that connection comes is when I was on the Southwest Chief Amtrak Commission, this gentleman was part of our commission, and I still have his number, so that could possibly help.
So I think we just touched the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more I know in conversation that needs to be said between y'all and the industry. So I really hope that those meetings will come in the future and y'all can work together. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Thank you, Rusty.
The other recommendation, I'm not sure if this, and I would make to the entire industry that's here, is if you guys have ever considered organizing as a cannabis industry
Cartel.
cartel.
That's right.
That would, and
The mayor agreed with that.
the other thing that it would allow you to do is to have maybe try to get a foothold, and we can help you in that regard with state legislation as well. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay.
Can I'm not there physically, but this is Melinda Kating of Trinidad Gardens. I just wanted to do two quick notes in regards to the advertising question that you have. I just wanted to make it clear, remind everyone that we advertise a ton, but we are not allowed to advertise to out-of-state residents. It's against MED red rules and regs. And if you look at that map that they showed you, 90% of the money that's being spent in Trinidad is coming from out of state. 90% of the people purchasing in Trinidad, we are not allowed to legally advertise to. You can, we cannot, right? And the other key component of the hospitality and even delivery of which Denver actually did is they opened it up first to the social equity applicants. And Trinidad is in the zone that allows the social equity rules and regulations. So everyone that grew up in Trinidad, if you talk about something that you're trying to bring up the city of Trinidad residents, everyone that grew up in the city of Trinidad is possibly eligible to get a social equity.
Could the audience not interrupt because we're trying to listen to the person? I do have one question, and you said that you're not allowed to market. Is that a state or is that a federal regulation?
That's a state marijuana enforcement division rules and regs.
Okay,
we're not allowed. Yeah.
Okay, where we could come into in that, and maybe to start at least a conversation, is we can get our state legislators involved to try to run a bill to change that. That is a possibility that we could talk to our state legislators.
I missed the second point you were making. Would you mind restating that?
Are you referring to the social equity piece?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. So the social equity license, there's
some criteria that you have to qualify in to get a social equity license. There's 3 options, but one of those is that you live for at least 15 years between the years of 1990 and 1985 and 2010. I have the rule book here, I can read it to you, but I'm going by memory. That you have lived at least 15 years in what they have qualified as the zone. And if you look at the map with the Department of Colorado Enterprise Zone, the city of Trinidad and most of the surrounding is eligible, is in that zone. And what that means is that they are eligible to get a social equity license, and therefore they would qualify for an accelerator license within Trinidad, meaning that they could join an existing license here and get an accelerator license within one of the established licenses here.
Okay, let's go ahead and wind this up, but I want to make one last comment, is that it almost sounds like, maybe the next meeting that we have on this, and the question, I think that the legislation that's out there, not the marketing, that you cannot market outside of Colorado, I think that's not a good thing. But I think that maybe we could even invite Cleve Simpson, who is our state senator, to participate. And that way he could listen to the industry to see what recommendations he has. I think that might not be a bad idea.
Mayor, if I could please, I think the reason for the rule historically is because states like Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, who traditionally frowned on marijuana completely, I think in order to make it really saleable and probably even to help with the adoption of Amendment 64, there was a real agreement that marijuana would not be advertised in other states where it was not legal. The whole rule was we were not supposed to be sending marijuana outside the state of Colorado, which is kind of what we're inviting, especially if we were advertising for people outside of the state and they come to Colorado and they don't have a place to consume, right? I mean, and we all know how, we have benefited from the exporting of marijuana out of the state of Colorado. But it was just kind of a very fundamental rule. I think it's a, great thing to be able to explore, but it's a very fundamental rule that we would not advertise, especially in states where marijuana is not only not allowed, but it's a crime. If we were to advertise, say, in, Texas, I don't think they have marijuana yet, and say, come to Colorado and buy weed, well, we're kind of saying, come to Colorado and buy weed and take it back to Texas.
To counter that, one of the things I was going to say is New Mexico has opened up.
Yeah.
Does their legislation say that they cannot advertise outside of New Mexico? And these are things that we need to find out. And as time goes on, more states will open up, and that interstate marketability is going to change. So I think it's maybe time that we maybe at least raise the question.
Sure.
Yes.
I would just say let's clarify, because we have some disagreement back here amongst ourselves. Our understanding is that as of January 1 of this year, the regulations changed so that we are no longer restricted to advertise out of state. There are billboards right down in Raton advertising dispensaries here in Trinidad. We also advertise in some publications that are distributed through New Mexico and through Texas now, and we've had no issue with it. So I just say clarify.
Can you get us that
Absolutely,
information?
I'll email it to you.
Send it to City Hall.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, also, I don't think there's anything that prohibits us from just marketing Trinidad generally to people who are coming through New Mexico from Texas or Kansas or wherever, with no regard to the marijuana industry in terms of what's great to see when you're here. We have 2 state parks, we have recreational opportunities. I think that there's nothing wrong with us doing that.
Actually, that's being done by tourism as we speak.
Yeah.
They're already doing that.
Great.
Okay.
We need to do that often.
Okay. Okay, and if there's no other question, let's move on to
I
the
was
next
just going to say,
item.
Mary, it'd probably be beneficial too to have someone to speak to the money piece for the next one, because there's some low-hanging fruit potentially, like for the $25 per pound.
Sure.
So,
These are all things that we need to
Yeah.
to look at.
because
Okay,
it'd be nice to take advantage of that.
sure, okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys, appreciate it. Okay, on to item 4, patio discussion.
This is my Tiny Tim crush. So I'm expecting a lot of sympathy tonight.
Okay, I got it.
Tiptoe through the tulips. All right. Howard and Nancy Lackey, we're here to talk about 2 things tonight. First thing is I'm going to save the city a bunch of money through Moose's Analytics, which is the most informative bar in Trinidad. We can do the same thing that the guy was talking about earlier for $500 a month. Guaranteed 100% information. All right, so what we're talking about tonight is the hospitality business. Now, the hospitality business we're going to talk about is a little bit different than what has just been expressed. And the city was involved in it for a number of years, for about 4 years, was very successful at it, was a great draw for Trinidad. Then we had a little bump in the road, about a 450-pound bump, and it has caused a lot of issues and a lot of misunderstandings and a lot, I think, some hard feelings with people in the community because the outdoor dining thing was basically killed. And it was not because of the participants, it was because of outside influences that really didn't have Trinidad's best interests at heart. So what we're going to do tonight is a proposal that I would want you all to think about it very carefully. My expert assistant here has worked very hard about this. She's got a PowerPoint that she's going to present to you, and I think you'll find it very interesting.
Did you give it to Audra?
Yes, okay. She said to let her know.
You have that PowerPoint? Can you share your screen?
There you go, thank you. Well, just a couple things to start with. As far as the presentation that the gentleman made about the data, most point of sale systems in retail businesses can track where people come from by their zip code. We use Square, and we can tell by zip codes. And I would also agree, I would say 90% of our summer business comes from tourists at least 150 miles away, and they're here for the weekend. So we know that just by looking at the zip codes. We can also track their zip code to their ticket. So it's a pretty informative way to track customers. I want to thank you for allowing us to have this discussion on the agenda and to move forward in a collaborative way so that we can move beyond the problems that we had. The problems that we had were generated by a former city manager, Gabe England, and Jonathan Taylor, the economic development director, that pushed through the patio. We didn't have design requirements. We didn't have really much to go on. Actually, Howard and I were in Salida with the Artocade people. We took a car over there for them, and we noticed these patios on the streets. We sent pictures back to Mr. England and to Mr. Taylor, and they loved the idea, and they got a grant, they built patios, and that was that. We weren't educated on ADA at the time, but boy, did we become educated. The thing that I think I want to stress most is that our industry, much like the marijuana industry, we have similar issues. When someone is Googling where to buy weed, or where to buy a fishing license, or where to go to eat, where's outdoor dining, all they have to do is Google outdoor dining, Trinidad, Colorado. That's it. That's the way that most people And from my days on the tourism board, we learned that the state tourism board is not wanting to fund, as we know, visitor centers because it's Google, Google, Google. And I think that what people are looking for, they're finding within seconds. Where can we go? Where can we take our dog? Saturday, for instance, during the car and bike show, I think we turned away 5 people with dogs. They think they can just come in, but the health restrictions and the codes don't allow dogs in restaurants. So, maybe it's just a couple $100, but a couple $100 every day, it adds up. So, to start, that's what we'd like to do, is to move forward. We believe Trinidad's downtown does need some help in the revitalization. It needs a lot of eye candy to draw the tourists. We see tourists walking up and down the sidewalks daily. If not 50, 75 of them there. They come from the hotel, they walk down, they circle, they come back. And they just want a place to sit and eat, have a beer, have something to drink. They just want to converse. In our particular situation, what's interesting, since we have the new business next door to us, the Fisher Peak Outfitter Center, and we have the Fisher person here and the River person, what guys and women do is they'll go back and forth, buy something at Fisher Peak, come over and show Howard, and then they want to sit down and talk about it. That's a wonderful thing. Now, in talking with Carlos and Lee, what we would like to do, when this design, if we can push this design out there, which I'll show you in a minute, it would be a multi-purpose patio or porch or parklet, as they're called nationally. We would like to institute bike racks because it's needed. Right now, when these expensive bikes are being ridden around town, people are spending $300, $400, $500, $600, up to $2,000 for a bike. They don't want to leave it outdoors because it'll get stolen. So there have been times that we have had 2 and 3 bikes inside the restaurant to help the customer out. We're glad to do it because we understand, the theft issue. So Audra, can you go to the
I just wanted to interject super
yes,
quick.
I'm sorry.
And sorry, but I think it's important. I really think it's important. But $2,000 is a cheap bike.
Yeah.
Yes,
You're right. You're right.
I know, but I didn't want to,
Right.
blow the budget.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know that. We have a lot of bikers that come in because we have the field guides. Juan brings a lot of out-of-town bikers in.
It just makes the point.
I know.
I don't want to burn more time.
Okay, all right, moving along. I selected this site for a couple of reasons. It's a National City Transportation Board's mission. They're basically an urban design, Main Street design kind of company. And their goal, their mission statement is that they want to build cities for people of all shapes, sizes, kinds, along with maintaining the economy and a vibrant way of life. When we go on vacation, we look for things that intrigue us. Oh, that looks really cool, let's go look at that. We don't have that downtown anymore. We don't have a patio or a parklet or outdoor seating areas where people can sit with their dogs. Say, for instance, Alley A. You could have more outdoor seating there because the benches don't fit the bill right now. There's not enough benches for the people that, especially elderly people, they need a place to sit down. So what this national organization does, they, in fact, I think in your packet, you will see their parklet designs. So the point is that parklets produce revenue, which has been a big topic tonight. Empty parking spaces don't. It's a maintenance issue. Outdoor dining parklets slow traffic down by 25%. And as we have seen since the patio has been MIA, When the light turns green on Animas and Main, it's a drag race. That never used to be the case. The awareness of something in the street, they could see and then they would drive by slowly, but now it's not that way. The most important thing is that parklets, patios, they are expected by tourists because they're international. They're not just in America or just in Colorado, but they're international. And because of the number of people that travel with dogs, which is 56% verified by Airbnb, the hotel industry, and that was 2 years ago, in 2019. They have not done an update since then. Okay, so that's that. Okay, Audra. So what we want to do is talk about the problems that we had and the solutions. And I have to go over here and read this because I don't have my glasses. Okay, so the cause and effect of removing the outdoor dining area was just a lack of collaboration between a poorly planned program, as I said, by a former city manager and ED director. There was a lack of understanding of the ADA laws and a lack of ADA master plan to fix and repair the things we needed, which brought the lawsuit about. What we're proposing, and it's not just Moose's patio, it's for outdoor dining in Trinidad. That, as you can see in the packets that we gave you, that there should be a point of contact person, and Mr. Just, being the ADA compliance director, my thought would be the person to sit down with an applicant and have policies and procedures that the National City Transportation Board outlines in how to select and how to work with an applicant of where to put a patio. It's a good long guideline. I think the one thing that really made me physically sick when we lost our patio is that we didn't have a chance to remediate. Or to mediate a solution. We could have taken the front railing off. We could have taken the steps away. We could have put the ramp all across the front. It would have been an easy solution, but I believe Hamer played us. We know he did, but that was then, and we're still living with it. But the businesses should not have to pay the price. They should not lose revenue over this situation, which the predecessors who sat in these chairs many years ago did nothing about. And we all now are paying the price for it in many ways. And actually, Sandy from Bella Luna and I were talking one day outside, and Steve Hamer pulled up to us and he says, "You know what, Miss Lackey, I think the city was too hasty." And I said, "Then why don't you go tell them? Go talk to them. Let's sit down and figure out what we can do." He said, well, I can't do that. So that's that. The things that we received from the city attorney, Mr. Downs, I'm sure you know the letter I'm going to talk about. There were several things that were kind of misleading in the letter.
One thing I would like to do, you're talking about moving forward, and we're going back to history.
Okay, that's fine.
Could we talk about how we move forward?
Yes, I would love to.
I think that would be probably the most interesting portion.
I would, thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
All right, so Audra, can you go to the next slide?
They'll go with the new bar restaurant owners to design and build.
Okay.
Mrs. Lackey, one thing I want to say too, and not, so you have the confidence that you know this. We have this in our packet, so we've
Yes.
been able to see it.
Okay.
We've been able to view it already, so.
Oh, I know. So.
Has everybody done their homework?
Yeah. Okay, so, thank you, Aaron. So I
said that so you'd have confidence.
Oh, thank you. So what I would like to do though is review or read to you, and I'll give this to you, Mike. Part of the ADA law states if tables, or let me back up. Required seating by reservation is only for large stadiums, theaters, auditoriums. If tables are provided, such as restaurants and snack bars, and the tables are attached to the wall or affixed, 5% of the tables, or at least one, must be accessible. If doing so is readily achievable. Readily achievable, okay. Accessible seating must be provided if doing so is readily achievable at each accessible table to accommodate people using wheelchairs. Movable chairs can be used for these tables, and movable chairs can be removed or moved when customers needing wheelchairs need to be
Do you
seated.
have the statute number that Les could follow up on that?
I'll get it. Okay. Fixed seating or fixed table, when fixed seating and tables are provided, accessible seating must be provided if readily available, which we are ADA compliant inside. We have ADA bathrooms and we have the spacing between our tables. So the problem was, and in a lot of the research I've read about ADA, is that if the complainant has not requested to be served at a business, but only wants to complain, his complaint can be deemed unreasonable. That's just research. It's not, I'm sure, not stated in the law, but anyway. So that's that part that I really want to stress. Yeah, so this particular patio, in what you can see is that the patio is level with the curb. There's no ramp and no railing. So people can move. Even Howard with his Tiny Tim crutch could easily access onto that patio. There's nothing to stop it. That's just one design. So there's no ramps, no railings. The next one, Audra, or you can skip down to that one. This is what I particularly like. This even has a miniature share and care library at the end, on the left end, where you, if you're sitting and eating or you want to have a drink, you can borrow a book. I don't think we're going to do that, but we are going to do an outdoor dog bowl water dispenser. Plus, we think it's really important, and I'd like to see 5 spaces for bike racks to be parked on the end. And then again, as you can see, there's no ramp. It's everything abuts to the curb. Okay? That's the one that I like. Okay, Audrey, thank you. So, we can go on to the next one. There you go. Nope, there you go. It's, nope. There you go. I hope that you all really took a good look at this. It's what we lost in revenue since June 25th. $8,000 a month is a bunch of money to lose for a small business because of.
Now, is that 8,000 every month throughout the year, or is that just an average, or is that through the busy season?
Well, we used our patio probably 11 months out of the year.
But does this 8,000 reflect, like I said, the average?
Well, so I didn't, it says, for example, if we had an $18,000 month, this is the standard formula, it's how to calculate an increased restaurant revenue. That link will show you the national average, or the industry average, of how to calculate revenue per seat. Per seat. So it's per seat, number of seats, hours of the day, days of the month.
So that fluctuated, Phil, depending on the time of the year, but during COVID, we got innovative and we had a winter wonderland out there. You know, we had
We used it all through
trees
December.
and icicles, and we had polar bear seeds, and, you know, we just had stuff to
Right.
try to generate activity, and so it's gonna vary from month to month, but you can pretty much from May through October are gonna be the biggest months, and those are gonna be the biggest tax generation months also.
Well-
Especially if we're redoing the look for downtown and everything else that's going on.
That's your gross revenue, right? That's not your net.
Gross.
Yes,
Gross.
gross, right.
I'd love
So,
it to be net, but no, it's gross.
yeah, so, for instance, the 18,000, the season we're going into now, those are the numbers. Now, Blues Fest, August will jump way up because we have so many people. Now, I think it's important, as we're all talking about downtown revitalization, revenue, keeping tourists happy. They're really curious why, and the customers that we had when we had the patio still come back and say, well, we were hoping you had your patio back. But it's not understandable to them how this happened. For the number of visitors, what did somebody say? We have 20,000 people
On the highway.
on the highway, or coming, Wally, is it 20,000 people that come through,
Drive-through per day,
drive-through per day?
on average, during 2021.
That's a lot of people. And we have Club 14, and we have Tease Me, and then we have the cafe with 2 tables. That's it. For 20,000 potential tourists. We need more. I know Trinidad Smokehouse has one on the back. I know Bella Luna wants one, but we're a long way off from fulfilling what we need. So it's just an extra way to help the businesses. It's an extra way to help the city with more revenue, and it's an extra way to help with tourists. It's to keep the tourists, it's the tourist trap as well. So, Audra, can you go down one, please? This is just a sample of a railing that I found that surprisingly, it's sculpted metal. It's not that expensive, but aesthetically, I think it adds a lot. It's artistic, it's creative, and it's durable. So if we did one panel of that design, and then our corners would be columns covered by faux stone, and then maybe poles in between, it would actually have a drawing, a draw to come and sit down. I think it would add some.
An aesthetic quality.
Thank you, Wally. And by the way, don't you think economic development should be supporting this? Oh, wait. Okay, so we won the Best of Awards 2 years in a row. The first year was for the bar and cocktail, best bar, best cocktail. That was the martini. Last year we won for best patio, when we did not have a patio. What do you think this is saying? This is local vote. It was a political vote, I think.
The process, as the city moves forward with a lot of different things right now, this is just a natural step into the way that we've got to look at ourselves. You know, the consumption club is an interesting concept. You know, everybody's got a different feeling about that. You know, and if we have those folks here for 3 or 4 days, and one of the things that everybody's got to realize, we have 4 million people that are within 3 hours of Trinidad. I think Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Santa Fe, Albuquerque. I'll even throw Amarillo in there. That's 4 million people that are paying $6 a gallon for gas. That means 6 kids and the dog in the little Honda Civic, they're going to stop the first place they can stop, and that's Trinidad. And they're going to spend 3 or 4 days here because they don't want to put everybody in that car and head down the road again. I mean, the economics and the dynamics of what are going on right now are really, really focusing on Trinidad. So we got to be ready for it. We learned how to spell the word tourist. Now we gotta learn what to do with them. And I think we're all starting to really think about it. We got baseball, we got 2 state parks. Let's get outdoor dining out there so people can walk up and down the streets. We've got festivals, car festival this last weekend, very well attended, had lots of good feedback on that.
A lot of out-of-towners.
We're talking about doing an outdoor expo for outdoor recreation and equipment and where to go, what to do, all those kind of things. So we've got to make Trinidad that place they stop. You asked the story about what the old axiom was, Trinidad, oh yeah, gas, pee, and a burger. And that was all they remembered us for, unless they got stuck on the past. And then that was the other game, right from past. So those are the things, and now they're looking at, well, I've heard a lot about Trinidad. I've heard a lot about the things you guys are doing there. Let's make sure that when they get here, you know, it's like a dog chasing a car. What's he gonna do once he catches it? Well, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna know. We're gonna be able to do it.
I hope it's better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aaron and Karen, I remember several meetings ago, I think it was when Bella Luna people were here, we were in the discussion, or the comment of communal dining came up. And I do have the state regulations for that. It would, let me find it here and I'll give a copy to you. But here's the problem, here are the problems with communal dining. Let's just say, for instance, that Alley A has a 40-seat communal dining area, maximum, maybe 20. Okay, so typical example, someone comes to us or someplace else down the street. They say, we're gonna go down to the communal dining. Great, we get them all ordered, bagged up. They got grandma, grandpa, kids, away they go. They get down there and there's no place to sit. Either because the Chimino patrons have taken over, or it's just other diners. So now they've got their food, where do they go? Okay? The kids are cranky, grandma's tired, they come back. So the most important thing to think about this is, because of the health regulations, you got to sanitize the table. So when grandma, grandpa, the kids, and everybody's done eating, who is gonna pick up the trash? Who is gonna wipe the table down? Not me. It's a communal dining.
Yeah.
The other thing is that the state requires an agreement among the people dispersing the food, and if you're sending out alcohol to go, we have to sign another form with the city. But secondly, we're responsible for what happens to that liquor a block and a half away, which then you start worrying about serving underage drinkers.
Yeah.
So communal dining, and my daughter lives on the East Coast. It's very congested, lots of little strip malls with Italian pizza, ice cream, a deli, and so on and so forth. What they do, though, is each place has their patio tables out in front. They're responsible for that. That's the true form of communal dining. So, I'm going to give you this state law here and save you some time. It was pretty informative to me.
Are there any questions you all have at the moment? Go ahead.
How long have y'all been in the restaurant business with Moses? How long is
6 years.
6 years?
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are kind of like a staple in the community then at this point, right?
Yes, and the most informative bar. We have all the information.
And what did y'all do before getting in the restaurant business? I'm a young guy. I've been doing it since 15. And and scary still. So how long have you all been in the restaurant and bar business?
Well, I moved here from Denver. I had been a real estate broker there for 35 years. And then I retired out of real estate. I went into modular construction for 12 years. And then while I was doing that, Howard met Gary Garluzzo, which was the end of that, our landlord.
Okay.
And the story just goes from there.
How many times have you thought about chunking it and quitting the restaurant?
She does every day. I
So-
never think about it.
So this is a pivot to keep the dream alive, I guess.
Well, I'll say it's a pivot. It's there's two things that, you know, before I was in this business, I was in the automobile business, and then I was in the ski industry. So I spent 35 years here in Trinidad going through lots of different aspects of the town's growth and not so growth, you know, all the things. I've seen it all. And it's become a point. When I first got into it, I thought, yeah, I did a little bit of this in college and stuff, and it took off, and thanks to Nancy and a lot of her innovation, it's become a mainstay in Trinidad, which has become a focal point in Trinidad. And we promote Trinidad 110%. We have people coming in, you know, wanting to know about this, wanting to know about that, history, and they keep coming back. And Trinidad is now a spot on their trip. We have people that go from Minnesota to Phoenix in the fall, and then stop in Trinidad.
Snowbirds.
And they leave from Phoenix, go back to Minnesota, and they stop in Trinidad. And we have folks coming out of Dallas, we have folks coming up out of Austin, we have them coming from everywhere. The only place we don't have a lot of people coming from, and we're trying to figure out how to market to them, is Kit Carson, Colorado. Just, you know, can't get that market over there. But anyway, the point is, we have lots and lots of people that now make Trinidad a point.
Let's do this, you know, I understand what you guys are trying to do, and it's not far-fetched, as far as that
No, it
goes.
makes sense for Trinidad.
But one thing I'd like to delve into is, I was looking in here somewhere, talking about the legalities and the, you know, somewhere in here, you mentioned about, if you were to do this, that you guys would take the responsibility.
Yes, I forgot to mention that.
And I think that is a very important aspect of this.
Yes, we would, well, actually, it's real interesting. We have 3 contractors who will donate their time, so we pay for the supplies. Excuse me, and it would be our cost, same terms as the lease before, where we leased the space. And I can't remember the other thing. In fact, I think our lease deposit is still being held by the city, so maybe we could just forward that. But it would be, and our insurance policy would release the city from liability.
You know, the question there is, I know that that's one of the questions that did arise, or if, let's say they did have a parklet into a parking spot, and something happened there. I know that your insurance would cover it, but does that grant us immunity from the
Could we?
Well, hold on a second. But the other thing I want to know is also our insurance is the other thing that we have to get clear on as well.
Could we have this conversation another day, please?
Sure.
There are a million different variables. There are so many things that this has been wonderful, and it's great to have you back here. I don't speak for council, but a lot of things I'd like to say, but that is a question that would be dependent upon a million different variables and a lot of
Okay,
considerations.
and like I said, this conversation will have to continue, because these are answers that we'll have to get.
One thing I would like to bring up, though, just, and that's one of the things that when we talked about this whole thing, is to alleviate the liability to the city. That's the number one. So if we eliminate the liability to the city, we contribute to the tax revenues of the city, and we contribute to the success of the city. That's exactly what we want to do. One of the things that we will work very closely with Mr. Just on the engineering of the thing and how it sits and the traffic flow and everything else, because the flower planters and everything that we had before, it slows traffic down. Traffic really pays attention. We didn't, in the 4 years that we had that patio, we had not one incident. Now, we did have semis tearing the lights out of the trees above us, but we had no problems with the umbrellas, we had no problems with people hitting the patio, we had no problems with people running into the planters. The only problem was with the guy in a wheelchair going up down the street and never spent 1 minute on that patio. So that's behind us, that's over with. So now we have to look at this from a progressive point of view, saying everybody that comes through this town right now, whether it's on a bike or whether it's with their dog or whether it's with grandma, they feel comfortable going, sitting on that spot, be the most safe place in the community, spending their money and saying, geez, Trinidad's a pretty good place. I'm glad I'm not just doing a burger, a pea, and gas and going. I'm just going to spend some time here. That's
So there's a
very-
couple of things that, like I said, you're going to get some information for less on that statute, and then the other thing is we'll have another discussion on this in the near future here to kind of look at the legalities and to make sure insurances, and all. I mean, you understand what I'm talking about.
Sure.
I think it's important.
Yeah, it's very important. One of the things I want to kind of bring up also is the fact that, speed is of the essence here.
If I may,
Sure.
Mr. Lackey, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but I'm going way out on a limb here and then sawing it off behind me. And I don't care.
I got another crush, so.
I agree with you. Speed is of the essence. I really like this. I know there's a whole bunch of pitfalls and hazards and whatever, but there always is. I mean, and I come at this from a different perspective. I mean, in the oil and gas industry, it's amazing how many parallels there are. The weed industry people basically said they're a victim of their own success. They grew a ton, it's not worth much. The oil and natural gas industry did the same. They overproduced natural gas, it became worth less. However, the parallels here, I think we have to, this is my opinion, I think we have to act with some urgency because we have people traveling through this town and they want to spend money somewhere. If we earn that person as a believer in and an enjoyer of Trinidad, we have future dollars spent here. This is a true story. I was downtown dining with my family and we watched some people walk up and down, and this is anecdotal, but if I observed it, that means that it happens
All the time.
right, in my opinion. I watched just people walk down to the west block of Main Street from Commercial and then down the east block of Commercial. I watched them, they come back. I said, what are you guys looking for? They said, hey, where's outdoor dining? And I had a brief talk with them. I didn't mention any of the issues we have, but the look of disappointment on their face was tangible. There's you can look this up, it's called revenge travel. A lot of people are looking to travel because they were locked down during the pandemic, and airline prices are through the roof because staffs have been furloughed, airplanes have been mothballed, and there's more people wanting to fly. Sorry for the length of this talk, but I think it's important. More people wanting to fly than are available. People are willing to pay huge tickets right now. Consequently, this is oversharing. My family was looking to take our son to this special amusement park, whatever. The prices are ridiculous to travel. I looked at flights, looked at hotel. The third thing I looked at was places to eat when we got there. I think that's pretty common amongst people that travel.
Yes.
I like the food. That being said, there's a lot of towns. I've noticed these parklets in a lot of towns. We would do well to help this along, and granted, we can't do it at every establishment along the road because then you have no parking at all. But not every establishment is going to want this. And hopefully the last thing I'm going to say, because I'm getting sick of listening to myself,
Me too.
I commend you guys for coming and doing this, and it has to be important because people don't put this much effort into something that isn't important. It's important for your business. It beautifies Trinidad. I think let's find a way to overcome the obstacles. And one last industry reference. I said, if nothing hazarded, nothing gained. In the gas industry, we produced a bunch of gas doing dangerous stuff. People sign insurance liability all the time in assigning that. There has to be a way to do this. I'm intentionally avoiding eye contact with Les. But it's something that can be done right now. There's those 20,000 people traveling up the road right now. We're not gaining any of them. Let's gain
Right.
some of them.
Well, and,
We
you know,
really need to do this.
if it's done throughout the country and it's done throughout the world, there's gotta be a way Trinidad can be insured.
I'm not answering.
I know.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I know, I understand.
But I don't think, really, that issue should prohibit the return of outdoor dining.
Well, it's gotta be made to
Talk
the
to
point.
them too.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead,
Just
Sharon.
one question.
I've got an observation.
When you rented Moose's, was the patio there?
Nope.
No.
So you rented it,
We brought
This is an idea we brought back from Salida.
It was in we started it in 2016 and it was delivered early spring of 2017. So we'd had it.
It was a city project.
Yeah. It was,
I'm not gonna, I guess we can't discuss it now. There's some observations that I have.
go ahead.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, this
no,
is the
it's
work
just
session.
that, I know,
No.
okay, I'm sorry.
No, we can wait till another time.
It's just that everybody's gonna wanna comment.
Right.
Right, and I'm
Let's
sorry.
do this. I was just looking at the calendar up there.
I'm sorry.
Our next work session is going to be on the 13th, on the 27th. 27th.
Well-
And I think that maybe we need to have a thorough conversation at that time with all of the questions, the legal questions, you know, the statute that we're asking for, and anything else that might arise, so that we could hopefully come to some determination to move forward or not.
Sure.
Well, and the other thing too, we're approaching, the July weekend,
I know
July
that.
4th weekend. And I realize that this can't be pushed through, but I'm asking for even a special meeting if possible. Because we'd like to start shopping supply prices.
How fast can you get a patio up, or a parklet, I'm sorry, if, let's say next meeting, we say, let's do it, how fast can you get one of those? I'm just asking them.
We don't wanna promise.
No, I'm not promising, I'm just
Right,
asking
kind of.
about the time.
I mean, it's like.
I know it has to go before a vote. I know.
Yeah, right, and we gotta talk a lot. There's
Yes.
a lot to talk about. I'm sorry.
Couple
There's-
But
Oh.
Answer
But
your
what's
question,
the-
couple
can-
minutes.
okay.
But I mean, it's not past beyond the pale to ask timeline. I mean, I think it's.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Okay,
Fair
but,
enough.
okay, being the city attorney, can you give me a list of all your concerns other than insurability?
Look, yes, the ADA, getting sued by you and by Mr. Hamer. I mean, those are just a couple, but I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, right? It's a 7:15, and I mean, we could begin this conversation and go all night long.
Liz, she asked
Yes.
a good question there, and I think maybe one of the best things to do is, she knows a couple of things we're asking of her to get for us, and I think it would be a good idea for you to come up with a list of questions and concerns that you have, and, send them to her, and then send them to us, so that at least we're aware, so that when we do have a work session on this, we're all aware of the concerns. I think that would probably alleviate a lot of the time.
Sure. If I could, I'd like to send my points. There's a lot of history and a lot of stuff I want to communicate with you confidentially. And I'm more than happy to share with the lackeys. My points objectively, just there's a lot to, convey to you in a confidential manner. But
I'll just be careful not to go back and regurgitate some of the stuff that
Right.
was
Yeah.
history.
No, that's water under the
Right.
Commercial Street Bridge.
That's what I'm saying, we don't want to regurgitate any of that other
Yeah,
stuff.
And we
that's,
sued us because we felt discriminated against.
okay,
that's,
so did
that's
others.
done.
Okay,
Right,
but you
right.
brought it up.
This is
I
all
did,
new,
you're
this is
right.
all new.
Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're going to end this right now, because it's starting to get out of the thing. We know where we're going to
I
go with
know,
this.
thank you.
But let's go ahead and end this, and
Thank you.
we'll bring it forward, and we'll see where we go.
All right,
Okay?
thank you for
Hopefully
your
in a
time.
positive direction, being positive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
ladies.
Bye.
Pardon?
Bye, Bob.
Okay, let's go on to item number 5, commercial vehicle parking restrictions discussion. Mr. Valentine, like I said, I was looking at this and just real quick, what is the address of the business in question?
Well, there's-
West Main.
No, it's a different topic.
Next agenda item.
Unless you're parking commercial vehicles in front of it. I don't know the address. It's not the only issue. We have it throughout the city where we have construction companies with, backhoes and trucks, and we have semis parked on the street while over the haul drivers. It's affecting the neighborhood, and really our ordinances as they're written, we didn't have any teeth, so this proposed ordinance that's in your packet redefines what a commercial vehicle is, the definition, because right now it just says commercial vehicle includes truck, tractor.
Right.
We want to change that to, but it's not limited to commercial delivery trucks, commercial vehicles, hauling trailers, flatbed trucks, dump trucks, stake-side trucks, semi-trucks, semi-tractor trucks, semi-trailers. I'm just reading this I'm sorry, you can all read that, but we had transit mix concrete trucks parked in neighborhoods. So we're redefining what a commercial vehicle is, and then the restricted area in times is it shall be unlawful for any person to park or stand or allow to any commercial vehicle on any public or private property in any residential zone district except during the loading and unloading of the vehicle and while currently being used for an on-site construction. In addition, it shall be unlawful to store, park, or maintain any farm or construction equipment in any residential zone district. It's just cleaning up the ordinance and giving code enforcement something to bring forth to these people.
I know the person that was writing all this stuff was trying to say that it was more of a parking issue rather than a zoning issue, but I can understand that just by just the limitations of what's on it. It says the truck tractor. I mean, it's just
right. It seems so. The person who wrote that, I've seen it. There's a truck, and there's another flatbed with equipment on it, and then there's another dump truck with a backhoe being pulled on a trailer behind it, and those are all parked in his, right in front of his house. So, and it's a residential zone district. This is not the only case. I don't want to pick on that person. They've been, attention has been brought to the situation, and he's been very good at not doing this, but moving forward, I think you need this. On Backer Street, there's a semi 18-wheeler parked there a lot, and it's a residential zoned area. So
let's get some questions from the council.
I know exactly what you were talking about, Mike, and back as narrow as it is, there's other places in Trinidad where people take advantage of that, and unless they're notified, they're not gonna move, they're not gonna do anything. But, yeah, something needs to be done.
I agree.
Is this strictly related to residential and then commercial? What about the beer trucks parking on, on Church Street and those places? I mean, there's gotta be a safety issue there. And the building, they're knocking the heck out of that building going down through that road there, the Catholic, and the road's being tore up. And it's just laziness on the beer guy's part. You could park down below there and wheel it up. I mean, there are parking places there. And I think we should be able to enforce some of that because they just blocking the streets. And if somebody had to get down in an emergency or something, it would be really difficult because they're in the bar somewhere. you know, where would you find them if you had to move them?
And they're there 20, 30 minutes at a time.
And they're there for quite a while. Most of the streets are blocked. Does that, any of this cover that?
I don't think it does cover that. You know, we have loading and zones in Trinidad. Part of the reason to make deliveries to businesses.
Well, I understand, and it's difficult because of the streets, you know.
Yeah.
But there are some areas that we need to really kind of enforce a little bit better than we're doing.
Are you talking about like maybe minimum time to unload? Is that kind
Yeah, well,
of?
that for sure, because they do park there. And
That would
then
be
some
fun.
areas would be just
How would you gauge
no
that?
way to do it. You know, I mean, no parking at all on that one section right there by the park, Miners Park and the bar there. Because that's a real important street there. You got, you know, going down that way. And he could either come earlier in the morning or, you know, or I don't know, maybe it's even possible to find out what day he comes and set some cones up right there by Miners Park so he can park there and get in and out of there in you know, 25, 30 minutes and take care of all the bars in that area. And he'd be parked on Main Street instead of blocking that driveway. And it'd be easier for him.
You do bring up a good point though, is maybe, I don't know if it's doable, is having them set delivery times in the morning or late in the evening.
Tough.
Not really. Yeah, they're required to do it.
Well, you,
Because there's other places that, other communities where they limit times of when they could deliver. The reason why I know is my brother-in-law years ago used to work in Denver, delivering produce to all of the restaurants. Specified time, he would start about 4 o'clock in the morning, had to be done by 8 o'clock so that the passageways were open. So it's not out of the question, I don't think.
Yeah. This is kind of a separate issue, but we'll look
Okay,
into
that's
it.
why I was just asking if
Yeah.
that's what was related to it. Okay.
Anyway, Aaron, do you have, Aaron Noble, do you have any questions?
I'm wondering, I read the back and forth between the complainant about this construction company that's doing business out of a house in a residential area. And I understand the purpose behind the proposed ordinance change, and I think that's good, but I also don't think we're addressing that particular issue, which is that we have a construction company doing business in a neighborhood, and whether that's something that is really the heart of the problem. If the business wasn't taking place in the home, then there would not be trucks around there. It would be taking place in an appropriate industrially zoned area. So I don't want us to dodge that issue by saying, yeah, we'll just figure out the way parking works and not enforce our zoning codes if we are not.
Aaron, this is Karen. Hey, I know the company that you're talking about, and he doesn't work outside of his home. He's mobile. He does all of his stuff in his truck or whatever. He lives there, and when he goes home at night, he parks his vehicles on the side.
I understand though that there was some issue with, I don't remember the word, but backflowing the vehicles and dumping waste in the street, that's not something that should be happening.
No.
So I just think it's a more global issue, it sounds like, than just this one situation where somebody has commercial vehicles that are being parked in a residential area. I think that's something we should look at.
The back.
I wouldn't be able to start a construction company out of my house. I don't. You know, I think they should be applied across the board.
The backflow issue that was brought up in there was backflows, for instance, if he was cleaning his equipment with city water, or he could get back into the city system, and that's the backflow preventer, and that's what he was talking about.
Anyone have any
Well,
questions?
if I can clarify one thing, when we license businesses, we license the location with a business license. When we license contractors, we license them performing that service. And we aren't looking at an address, because a lot of them have their offices out of their home, we're not asking them where they're storing equipment or any of those sorts of things. And I think that was the only point in the back and forth was we're not specifically licensing that location for him or any contractor to have their business. Just like we license out of town contractors and that come in, we're not saying it's okay for them to work out of their home if they live in Pueblo, because that's outside of our jurisdiction. We don't know where they're working at, what location they're working out of. So that's why we have to address it, in my mind, as from the parking standpoint.
You know, my personal feeling is that if they're going to even work from out of town and come into town, and they're going to have a business, I think that they should find adequate place to park their vehicles elsewhere other than on the street.
Yeah.
Naaman, do you have any questions?
No, I agree. When you have, I guess, light to heavy machinery, it should be stored and properly taken care of so it won't interfere with residential neighbors. So.
I agree with all the comments that have been made. I mean, I don't need to add to it.
Okay. Well, like I said, I think this change, I don't have an issue with the change. I think we're okay with it. I don't have an issue with it. And I think afterwards, the ordinance, as long as code enforcement will follow the rules and enforce the issues, I think that's the key to this whole thing.
I do think.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
What if this person or whoever is in a similar situation decided they were going to store all their vehicles on their land and off of the street? Do we have any say in that situation?
They'd have to have a pretty big piece of property in order to store it. I don't think there's any place in downtown that would be big enough to just store a backhoe and a skid steer and a tractor trailer and, box trucks and whatever. I just don't believe that there's any place in town that would be a resident that would have that room. But I understand what you're saying. How do we address it?
Yeah, this will keep trucks off of the residential streets, but it won't keep trucks out of neighborhoods, if that's what the essential issue is, being parked in driveways. And I don't think it's quite as simple as we're painting this ordinance that's taking care of the situation. I think when we have contractors who come and we're licensing a contractor here, we ought to ask the questions about where are you storing your materials, where will the work be done, rather than just accepting it as a business address and from a paperwork point of view.
Mr. Valentine, do you feel like that is something that maybe we should address as well, that she was talking about?
I'd have to do some research into the zoning ordinance and what's allowable use by right and parking vehicles on your own property. I'd have to research it and
let's
get
do
back
that.
to you on that.
Let's do that. Okay. Anything else? Okay. All right, thank you for that information. Let's go on to item 6, discussion of other agenda items. Mr. DiBono, any other items that you feel you'd like to bring up?
Well, this has been brought up before in prior council meetings. The Riverwalk, I've received more than one call recently, just yesterday, or actually this morning about 10 o'clock. A lady and her niece from Pueblo were walking on the Riverwalk, and they were approached by two men, probably in their early 20s. They asked for money. She refused, and she said, please just leave us alone. They kept following her and said, come on, you have to have some money to give us. She said, well, unless you want mace in your face and I'm going to call the police, then you better leave. So they exited towards the bushes, and she didn't want to give me her name, but she had my number, but she sounded like somebody I talked to before about something about real estate. But and I know I was doing the remote at the Saturday for KCRT for the car and bike show, and someone else approached me about a similar issue.
Both of us.
Yeah, both of us.
On that particular issue, Mr. Valentine, I know that, the police department were doing the
They take their ATVs down.
no, not the ATVs, I'm talking about where some of the residences, or, some of the citizens, there's a citizens academy type thing. And, I don't know, I know they can't do anything, but at least having them walking through there with, let's say, a City of Trinidad jacket on or something to show that there's presence there, even though if there's something that comes up like that, they have a phone, they can call 911 and then police can go down. But they would give a presence down. I'm not sure if that's something that Charlie would be willing to do with some of these people that attend that academy.
Like the Guardian Angels.
Yes.
But the academy, the Citizens Academy, they haven't held it because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had a suggestion one year that we put a police call box down there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's possible.
Well, you probably need more than one call box.
Well,
Yeah, the infrastructure was the issue, and I think everybody from 10 years old on up has a cell phone.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, that's
I mean, it's like,
just about everybody does.
do an emergency toll thing.
Yeah, it's that's a huge issue that we have.
Yeah,
I don't know
it is.
what's the real answer to without having, but we just don't have that capacity where you could actually have a police officer that would be patrolling up and down all day long, but we just don't have that
She said
capacity.
that they didn't look like they were homeless. They were dressed, pretty much like we're dressed today. It's just like, I need some money, so it's the easiest way to try to get it, I guess.
Do we have cameras down there?
No.
certain areas, we have camera coverage, but not the entire river block.
Motion detectors, anything like that?
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Karen?
I think our plate's full.
Okay.
Same opinion.
I got nothing.
You got nothing?
I got
He does have one.
Mayor,
You got mine.
I had mentioned that I think it'd be super beneficial to have a work session that would focus on, and this is the abridged version. I had mentioned that it would be super beneficial that we have a work session on trying to bring together the various groups that will help Trinidad be steered in a direction that we know we are absolutely with certainty heading towards being a tourism town. I could talk a long time about all the, we are losing marijuana revenue. It's nice we got the mine, the gas production, but we need to diversify and claim more, and we're on the precipice of doing that. And I mentioned it would be a really positive idea to have that overarching meeting to collect those groups necessary together, such as tourism board, outdoor parks and rec, those sort of things. Is that
I think that was doable. I was hoping that we could do that with that grant that we had but I think that this might be something we might have to do ourselves, just to kind of get some input from the citizens.
Well,
and from ourselves to, like you're saying, Trinidad as a destination point. What does it take? What do you feel it's going to take?
Well, because like I mentioned this before, like having a trail over there and a trail over here and a river walk down there and a fishing here, we really need to get a cohesive marketing plan together. And I'm sorry for taking everyone's time, but that's why aircraft carriers have captains, because if you let the helmsman steer, he's going to steer to the nearest port as fast as he can. If you let the chief cook be in charge, he's going to park the boat because it's easiest to cook if the boat's not rocking. The air boss is going to want to steer into the wind because it's best to launch planes. But we, city council, need to take the rein and ensure that we're heading in a manner that is going to cause Trinidad to be a destination, because Wally's gone. But of those 20,000 cars going up the highway, we need to convert X% of them to staying in Trinidad. I think it's super critical to do, and I apologize for the time I'm taking. You mentioned other special meetings. This is a big ask, and I'm not complaining. I chose to run for this. I'm proud that I got on, but it's a big ask because we all.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think we're not doing?
Well,
I mean, everything that comes up, we're pretty much for it.
It's
as far
not
as tourism and stuff, you know.
Mr. Shu is not, Councilman Shu is not a complaint on my part.
No, I mean, I'm asking for your.
Right. I think we just need to be super cohesive, and like, I had a plan to draw on board and stuff. I'm gonna forego that, but like, we really need to ensure that, like, I keep mentioning Fruta, but it's just one slice of the pie. Like, it's a little piece. But if you look at Fruta, they are drawing from south of here to west of here. Those people are driving immediately through this area to go to Fruta. And they're gonna go to Fruta, ride mountain bikes, for 2, 3, 4, if they have a lot of money, a week. We could be doing that here. And they're gonna spend a lot of money in Fruta to do that. We need to find a way to make sure that Trinidad is developing to that path. And I mean, in my heart of hearts, I believe that Fisher's Peak, if you look at the master plan there, we're heading to that direction, but we need to ensure we're cohesively heading that direction, because, you know, so we need to have billboards up, and I could describe the billboards in my head, but like, people driving to Fruta, they can say, hey, I've heard of Trinidad, I stopped for gas there. You convert them to a coming to Trinidad person next time, if that makes sense.
Let me give you a good example, kind of explaining what you're saying, is that when we had the Rad Bike Fest, my wife and I, we volunteered at the Ludlow thing, and during that 5 hours that I was out there, my wife and I, we talked to people out there, and I talked to one person out there that was a rider, and he said that he travels to a lot of the bike places, and he said that we were talking about the cost of bikes. You know, a 2,000 bike, it's the low-end bike. We're talking $10,000, $15,000. He said these people on these upper end, they have a lot of money to spend. He said he typically will spend a minimum, whenever he goes someplace, at least $2,000 a weekend. So that's what we're looking at.
And if I may, Mayor, so like, you know, we're looking at a demographic south and southeast of us, because the people on the west side of the Rockies are going to Moab, you know, Tetons, whatever. They're going someplace else. But so we have fishing here, and you're going to be able to garner a different demographic. You know, maybe a radius of 200 miles. I don't know, probably even more, because people want to come fish in the mountains. Someone mentioned gas is more, so they're going to stop here. We have even other things that I haven't even thought about, but that's why we need to be the captain. We need to be the captain of the aircraft carrier and make sure we're going in that direction. We're not maybe doing it, but we're telling the helmsman, you steer here. We're telling the air boss, you launch this many wings. Sorry, the Navy, whatever. But my point is, that train sitting over there, if we properly maintain that, there's railroad aficionados, and we're going to draw from another demographic that would come for that. So we need to take a very cohesive, intentional means to try to get Trinidad on the map.
And I think you had one more item that you wanted to talk about.
Respectfully, I would like to submit my name for consideration to the ARPA board. That's I would serve it obviously out of your pleasure.
I think that's actually a good choice, simply because you're in the energy industry, and I think that would be just a good segue to between both. Appreciate that.
And that's a good way to punish those people down there to send you.
The only thing
I would like to file a complaint.
The only thing I wanted to mention is Mr. Valentine and I, we've had this discussion, and We have various boards and commissions throughout the community and the city, and a lot of times we have troubles filling some of these boards and commissions, and some of them are overlapping. So I think that maybe in the near future, we're going to consider maybe consolidating some of these boards together. That's because that way at least maybe we'll be able to fill these boards. Maybe they won't be going off in different directions. Maybe they'll work together by consolidating them. So I think this is a discussion that we'll have to have in the near future. Of course, that would be after Mr. Valentine leaves, but I think that's a discussion that we'll have to have. Let me go ahead and get, Aaron, what you have? Do you have anything?
I'm remembering a few weeks back we met with the police chief and we talked about code enforcement, and I really would like city council to look at, and or staff, the city attorney, to look at whether or not there are functions that a city employee rather than a police officer could serve in code enforcement, so that it takes away the the criminal aspect of it, and it just makes it more of an administrative thing, so that people are aware that somebody's watching when they're letting their yard go, and that there is a something that happens when that happens. That you can get a notice with some information about what to do, rather than burdening our police department with that responsibility. I think it would be better suited for a staff member with the city, possibly a new staff member. And certainly this is something that we're not going to ask Mr. Valentine to take on in the last few weeks, but I think it's something that we should definitely look at for the future.
I agree.
Karen, do you have another question?
No, not a question. I was just replying to Aaron. I understand what you're saying, but I think it's not that we don't have the people in place to mount a concerted effort for tourism. I think the problem is we as council don't know what the tourism board is doing. Mayor Rico is a liaison, but I think it would be nice in the future to have the chair of the tourism board come and tell us, what marketing are you doing for Trinidad? But like the outdoor, Mr. Chatterley's doing a great job. We need to know that.
I think what we'll do with that is, when we get these different boards and commissions to come in maybe during the work session and give them, 5 or 10 minutes to kind of explain what they're doing.
Yes,
that's what
exactly.
we're talking about. What he's talking about is totally different.
It is?
Yes.
Yeah.
All I heard was.
I can talk to you offline, so you don't accuse me of harming our.
Well, if there's nothing else, meeting's adjourned. The time is now 8:12. Had a long 3 hours. Thank you very much.
It was 3. That flew by.